Fairy Tale. Master 8 Types of Dragon Slaying Magic at the Start. Chapter 101. Mobai shrugged helplessly and didn't say anything to expose him. After all, he came to him for a serious matter this time. After a tactical cough, Mobai became more serious and got to the point. Uncle G. Huh. Do you want a daughter or not? As long as you open your mouth, I will send it to you immediately. What the hell? Gildarts thought Mobai had taken the wrong medicine and blurted out such a sentence. What do you mean you want a daughter or not? Mobai scratched his head. Well, how should I explain this in detail? Let me explain. A soft voice came from behind Mobai. Kana finally mustered up the courage to gradually lean out and looked at Gildarts calmly. Mobai breathed a sigh of relief. She finally figured it out and was willing to confess. Gildarts looked at Kana with interest, pretending to listen attentively. Do you want to talk to me about something, little girl? Looking at Gildarts' weather-beaten face, Kana's lips trembled slightly, and her eyes finally calmed down, and she said slowly. Actually, the reason I came to the guild is to find my father. Gildarts was a little surprised, but he didn't connect this with what Mobai said before, and said. This is the first time I've heard of this. Does that mean your father was also a member of Fairy Tale? Kana's eyes quickly filled with disappointment, her fists clenched, and her lips were almost bitten to bleed. For a long time. Kana finally raised her head again and vented the secret that had been sealed in her heart for many years. My mother told me before she died that my father's name was Gildarts, and that was you. Gildarts' expression froze. My brain is down. After a few seconds, I looked at Kana's flushed cheeks and finally woke up from a dream. Ah! This news was like a thunder in my ears, buzzing continuously. Gildarts' eyes suddenly widened, his jaw almost dropped to the ground, his eyes full of shock and disbelief. Kana explained, because a lot of things happened in the middle. So, I decided to tell you until now. Wait a minute. Gildarts covered his face and stretched out an arm to interrupt Kana. You. Who gave birth to you? Ah. As soon as this was said. Now it was Kana's turn to lose her composure. What do you mean by who gave birth to me? Gildarts stared at Kana's face for a long time, but still couldn't recognize her, so he could only ask one by one. I really can't guess who your mother is. Sarah, Naomi, Claire, Fina, Mary, Eliza. Oh no, your hair color is not the same. Emma, Layla, Jenny, Shirley, Kate, Yuka, Françoise. Seeing Gildarts counting on his fingers to rule out one by one. Soon 10 fingers were not enough. Mobai said quietly beside him, Uncle, how many girlfriends have you had? Kana was also embarrassed in the same place, with a very unnatural expression on her face. Oh, I know. Gildarts' eyes suddenly lit up, and then he said, You must be the daughter of Silipia. You are exactly the same. For example, gender. Kana was speechless, glanced at Gildarts with disdain, and said speechlessly. I'm really mad at you, I didn't expect my dad to be such a philandering man. Gildarts scratched his head embarrassedly. Ah. Kana snorted lightly, turned his head angrily. Anyway, this is what happened, I'm done. Mobai, let's go. Wait a minute, Gildarts shouted. Kana was still angry. That's all I want to say, I don't have to be a family with you, and my life is good now. Before she finished speaking, Kana suddenly felt a pair of strong arms, and without saying anything, he directly hugged her into his arms. At first she wanted to resist. But Gildarts' voice above her head was particularly reassuring. You are Cornelia's child, there is no doubt about that. Let me go, Kana whispered. Why did you tell me this only now? I couldn't say it, and it was delayed until today for some reason. Throwing herself into Gildarts' warm embrace, Kana finally opened her heart. Gildarts was no longer as frivolous as before, and said word by word. Cornelia is the only woman I have ever truly loved in my life, and I have only ever been married to her. It's just that she couldn't accept the various dangerous jobs I was doing every day, and she left 18 years ago. A few years ago, I also learned about her death. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you are our daughter, Kana. Kana smiled faintly and gently pushed away Gildarts's arm. I came to you today not to ask you to take some responsibilities or anything. I just wanted to untie my knot. In the future, we will still get along as we did before, right? But I still have to tell you something. Nice to meet you, Dad. Kana looked relieved, and looked at Mobai who was watching the show next to her, as if to indicate that she could leave. Mobai did not respond, but his finger quietly pointed at Gildarts. Hey. Kana then turned her head to look again. The 2-meter-tall man in front of her, I don't know when, has already burst into tears. In his eyes, regret, guilt, and doting. Intertwined, tears flowed. Gildarts could no longer control his emotions, and embraced Kana again, muttering. No, I won't let you be alone again. And this time, Kana finally did not refuse again, and calmly hugged him, accepting the love that should belong to her. Mobai turned around unnaturally and walked slowly into the distance quietly. Alas, I can't bear to see these things when I'm old, and crocodile is easy to get in my eyes. It's great to be reunited. I did a great deed today, and I'll reward myself by visiting the Dream Demon Customs Museum later. I didn't take a few steps. Kana called herself. Mobai, thank you for what happened today. Looking at Kana's sweet smile from the bottom of her heart, Mobai suddenly felt that this drunkard was sometimes quite cute. Although he often got drunk and teased himself. No need to thank me, just don't drink too much and fall down at my doorstep again. Mobai said half-jokingly. No. Gildarts looked at Kana lovingly, then looked at Mobai who was about to leave, and seemed to know what was going on. He casually opened the bag thrown on the ground and took out some drinks from it. He also threw a can to Mobai. Mobai took it in his hand and saw that there was no label on the can, and he had no idea what was inside. Squeak. As two voices rang out, Kana and Gildarts had opened the drinks and drank them. Mobai still asked cautiously, what kind of drink is this? It's not a bar again. Of course not, it's just oolong tea. Gildarts replied with a smile. He then took the drink from Mobai and opened the pull ring for him. Come on, today I want to thank you for finding such a beautiful baby daughter for me. Mobai looked at him with a strange expression and did not take the drink. Instead, he activated the fire-attributed dragon-slaying crystal in his body, and flames ignited on his fingertips. An embarrassing scene appeared. As soon as the index finger touched the upper layer of the drink, the can was directly burned. Mobai asked expressionlessly, your oolong tea can catch fire, right? Seeing that the lie was exposed. Gildarts did not feel the slightest bit of shame, he smiled and said speciously. Flammable oolong tea is still oolong tea. Chapter 102. Mobai was in a state of confusion. However, looking at Kana and Gildarts who were toasting and drinking, they seemed to have a lot to say. It would be inappropriate for him to disturb them again. Mobai smiled and shook his head, and the wings of the storm dragon reappeared. Just as he was about to return to Magnolia. Suddenly, a strange wave of magic came from his brain. Hey, what's going on? As the wave stabilized, a picture seemed to appear in front of Mobai's eyes. In the picture, a pair of white-haired sisters seemed to be seriously injured. And in front of the two, there was a guy whose body was integrated with the tree and kept attacking them. Mobai's eyes suddenly widened. Two clusters of angry flames suddenly ignited in his pupils, and his hands unconsciously clenched tightly, his knuckles turned white because of the force, and trembled slightly. The source of this magic is the Haze Forest. Time goes back to this morning. Lysina and Mirajan went out together, ready to go to the guild. On the way, remembering that there were only two sisters at home recently, Lysina couldn't help asking, by the way, Sister Mira, I don't think I've seen Brother Elfman recently. He, the day before yesterday, was suddenly approached by Alba Green of the Thunder Gods, saying that she had a commission and must ask him for help. But there is no news until now. When Mirajan said this, there was not only no worry about Elfman's safety in her tone. On the contrary, there was some expectation. Mirajan had long discovered that Alba Green seemed to have a good impression of her brother, a straight man. She said that she was asking Elfman to go to work, but maybe in fact, she was the client. And from Mirajan's smile, Lisana roughly guessed a little bit. Okay, then, are Brother Mobai and the others back? Marahe was startled when he heard this, then stopped and looked at Lisana meaningfully, tilting his head and smiling. What's the matter? You call me so intimately. No, nothing, just asking. Realizing that her performance might be too obvious, Lisana blushed and immediately lowered her voice. Marahe then explained, Mobai and Urzanatsu are in the same team. They usually do missions quite frequently, and it is rare to see them in the guild hall all the time. Is that so? A hint of disappointment flashed in Lisana's beautiful eyes. What's the matter? Do you have something to ask him? Marahe asked. Lisana said sadly, Brother Mobai was worried that I would not adapt well after returning to Aslant, so he said that I could ask him to go with me when I wanted to work. I didn't expect him to be so busy. Do you want to go to work? It has been a few days since I came back from Edris. During this period of time, Lisana has become familiar with Magnolia Town and Fairy Tale Guild again. She also wants to return to her normal life. Mirajan thought for a while and suggested softly, how about I accompany you to work today? Ah, Sister Mira, aren't you usually very busy? Mirajan smiled faintly and shook her head. After Laxus left the guild, I was afraid that the president would be lonely, so I often asked him to help take care of Nina. As for the front desk waiter work, I will trouble Janana to help today. Tilda. Lisana was overjoyed and gave Mirajan a warm hug. Carrot oh carrot Tilda great. Thank you Sister Mira. Okay Tilda, let's go to the guild first. After the two arrived at the guild, Lisana quickly selected the commission from the notice board. B-level mission, obtain the Jingyan spring water that can cure miasma in the Haze Forest, no special requirements, reward 80,000 J. B-level mission, it doesn't sound difficult. In addition, Mirajan has long recovered the strength of an S-level wizard, so it is almost easy to deal with this commission that does not require fighting. But the main purpose of this trip is to help Lisana adapt quickly. Mirajan readily agreed, and after handing the commission to Janana for registration, he took his sister to the destination in a carriage. Almost the same scene as when Mobai came here last time. The trees in the Haze Forest are too lush, with layers of branches and leaves intertwined into an impenetrable green dome. The sun tried its best to penetrate this thick barrier, but it could only cast a few faint rays of light at the edge and could not penetrate deep into the forest. The moment I stepped into the forest, a damp coolness hit me in the face, and the darkness instantly enveloped me. Mirajan gently reminded, Lisana, follow me closely. According to the route given on the commission sheet, continued to move forward. The deeper they went into the forest, the more a vague sense of uneasiness emerged from their hearts. It seemed a little scary here that it was quiet. Lisana suddenly said, Sister Mira, do you smell any strange smells? After all, Lisana practiced the magic of receiving animal souls. Even if she didn't use magic in normal times, her 5 senses were more acute than normal humans. After her reminder, Mirage finally smelled it. There was indeed a strange smell that seemed to be there and not there nearby. Wait, the magic power in the body is gradually fading. After a few seconds, Mirage suddenly realized that without using any magic, the magic power began to slowly fade. Sister Mira, I am the same, the magic power seems to be fading. It's miasma. Go, get out of here. Mirage shouted anxiously, pulling Lisana's wrist and running back to the original path. But when the two just turned their heads, A sudden loud noise broke the silence of the entire forest, and a towering tree in front of him exploded in an instant. The thick trunk seemed to be torn from the inside by a huge force, and countless wood chips and wood fragments shot out like bullets. Under its violent impact, the air seemed to be distorted, forming waves visible to the naked eye. Milaji subconsciously protected Listener behind him. Listener took a step forward and directly activated the magic power in her body. The magic circle appeared under her feet and received the beam of light covering her whole body. Animal Soul Penguin. The light dissipated, and Listener's body was covered with a thick layer of penguin down, absorbing all the wood chips that were ejected. Until she calmed down. Listener breathed a sigh of relief and returned to her original appearance. Milaji stepped forward with concern and carefully checked whether Listener was injured anywhere on her body. You girl, always taking risks. However, at this moment, Listener's eyes were looking straight ahead. In the direction of the collapsed trees and explosions, a sturdy figure was walking towards them. Every time the other party took a step forward, the pressure of the magic power emitted became stronger, exerting a huge pressure invisibly, which made people palpitate. Sister Mira, his target seems to be us. Don't be afraid. Miraji gently held Listener's hands and whispered to comfort her. But in her heart, she still had a deep fear of the person in front of her. The other party's magic power seemed to be stronger than her and Listener combined. Chapter 103. As the sturdy figure moved in front of him. This person has bronze skin, and the color and shape of his hair are almost exactly the same as branches. In addition, he is wearing green and brown clothes. He is just like a living tree man. Mirajan stood in front of Listener vigilantly and asked, "Who are you? Did you cause the attack just now?" The other party looked indifferent and uttered a few words expressionlessly. Devil's Heart, Azuma. Devil's Heart. Mirajan's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise, and she took a breath of cold air, and her face became even paler. Devil's Heart, one of the 3 giants of the Dark Guild Balam Alliance. Although Listener on the side rarely heard of the Dark Guild. However, seeing Mirajan's reaction and the terrifying magic aura on Azuma, she immediately took out the amulet she had brought out from Edla's from her waist, gritted her teeth and infused a large amount of magic into it. The amulet given by Sister Mira from another world. I hope it can be useful. Faced with the powerful pressure from Azuma, Miraja mobilized all her magic power without hesitation. As the magic circle emerged, she immediately transformed into the form of the devil Satan with black wings. Receive Satan's soul. Confronted Azuma in the air. Although they had not yet negotiated, the other party was from the Dark Guild that had always been hostile, and Miraja did not expect Azuma to let them go easily. Feeling the surge in Miraja's magic power, Azuma's eyes suddenly showed a desire for fighting, and he said in a voice as deep as a bell. According to the information from our guild, you should be the fairy tale S-class wizard, the demon Miraja, right? Miraja did not say anything, staring straight ahead, always on guard against the opponent's sudden attack. Azuma's eyes were calm, and he slowly swept his sight. He suddenly raised his strong arm, and pointed his palm directly at Listener. With the girl's scream, Mirajan turned around in shock, but found the most desperate scene. The surrounding trees were manipulated by Azuma and intertwined, and now Listener was bound and unable to move, and these trees were still shrinking. Listener. Mirajan rushed forward like crazy, tearing the branches with his hands frantically, but these branches seemed to be welded. It was useless. Listener looked more and more painful. Azuma's voice without any emotion sounded again. I have always been pursuing a battle with the strong, demon Mirajan. As long as you can defeat me, you can all leave here safely. Mirajan's devil hand gently stroked Listener's forehead, whispered a few words of comfort, and then slowly turned his head. His eyes were full of anger and cruelty. As the purple-black flames burned from the palm, the devil's power burst out. With the blessing of the wings, Mirajan's speed suddenly increased to the peak. Almost disappeared like a ghost, and appeared beside Azuma. Dark sparks. The palm claws with dark magic kept bombarding Azuma's body. Feeling the magic fluctuations like the devil's breath emanating from Mirajan's body. Azuma's eyes were more eager to fight, and he lightly jumped onto the trunk of the giant tree behind him, and his body actually followed him into the tree. However, at this moment, Mirajan had already disregarded everything and didn't care what Azuma meant by this move. He directly shifted his attack target to the entire tree. Screaming B. Just as Mirajan's surging Satan power was about to bombard the giant tree. Azuma had already used the arc of the tree to absorb some of the natural energy, and his magic power suddenly increased. He freed his arms and instantly extended countless dense branches. At the end of the intertwined branches, a cluster of strong flames suddenly emerged and burned on Malaje's demon claws head-on. The intense burning pain penetrated from his body into his heart, and Malaje still clenched his teeth and urged his magic power to attack. But the next moment, as Azuma mobilized his magic power again, a dangerous and extremely unstable energy was quietly spreading above the branches that were originally burning in front of him. Chain explosion. Under the control of the arc of the tree, the magic power of the earth and the trees was concentrated and gathered to the extreme, and suddenly exploded. Smoke and dust flew up, Malaje retreated violently, leaving traces of gullies on the ground, and a demon claw took the opportunity to buckle into the ground, and then he stabilized his body slightly. Compared with the previous madness, at this moment, Mirajan's face was obviously more fearful. His magic power is stronger than any opponent he has ever seen. In the Devil's Heart Guild. Although Arusha is the leader of the 7 Familiars of Purgatory, her status depends to a certain extent on the powerful mechanism of the Arc of Time. The lost magic used by Azuma is the Arc of a Tree, and this magic is almost entirely used for attack and defense in battle. If we only talk about the strength of combat power, Azuma is definitely not inferior to Arusha, who has the strength of the 10th Saint. Mirajan looked back at Lisina, who was still trapped in the branch prison with distress, and was about to stand up and attack again. But suddenly she realized that her body was weak, and her legs had gone limp. Oh no, it's the poison gas just now. The magic power in the body is still decreasing. For a wizard, magic power is not only equivalent to the energy bar, but even equivalent to half of the life bar. Once the magic power is exhausted, it will probably be weaker than a muggle who can't do magic. This performance was naturally seen by Azuma. Azuma glared at Mileage, his tone calm. You inhaled miasma, right? Mirage still didn't answer. She looked up and stared at Azuma, her angry eyes almost emitting fire. Azuma continued, the miasma in the haze forest was accidentally triggered by me during my training some time ago. Just inhaling a small amount like you are now has caused a temporary decline in magic power. But you can recover as long as you breathe normally for a while. But if you inhale a large amount at once, or stay in a miasma environment for a long time, the impact will soon be fatal. The purple-black light covered Mileage, who fell to the ground again. But this time, it stripped her of her Satan form and restored her to her original weak appearance. At this moment, Mileage used up all the remaining strength in her body, finally stood up, and slowly walked to the bound Lisina. Sister Mira. Miraja smiled palely on her beautiful face, and said apologetically, I'm sorry, Lisina. As a sister, I failed to protect you again. At the same time, Azuma also escaped from the trees and walked towards the two sisters step by step. The concentrated explosive magic power condensed in his hands, and Azuma said, instead of letting you die in the miasma, I will end your suffering with one blow. Azuma raised his arm. At the moment when the explosive magic power was about to condense and attack, his face suddenly changed drastically, and he didn't have time to retract his arm. Above the towering trees, a golden thunder suddenly struck down with the momentum of breaking bamboo, and then burst directly and violently bombarded Azuma's sturdy body. Faced with this sudden change, Azuma had no time to resist, and only felt a huge force coming, and his body flew backwards involuntarily. Azuma, who was violently repelled, crashed into giant trees along the way, and the thick trunks broke one after another, making a heavy cracking sound, until he finally stopped in front of a cracked stone. Mirajan and Lysina stared at the scene in front of them in a daze. As the smoke and dust dissipated, the figure of the Golden Thunder was clearly seen. In addition to disbelief, hope appeared in her beautiful eyes. Mobai. Chapter 104. Sorry, I'm late. Mobai turned around and smiled reluctantly, saying softly. Miraja seemed to suddenly remember something, and his face was filled with worry again, reminding him. Be careful, there is a kind of poisonous gas in this forest, which can directly affect the magic power in the body. When he just entered the haze forest, Mobai had already smelled this unusual smell. The last time he met Urrutia and the other two here, there was obviously no such smell. Mobai couldn't help but frown. Being in a miasma environment, the magic power is gradually declining over time. And looking at the situation of Mira and Lysina, because they have inhaled the poisonous gas for too long, their spirits have begun to wane, and the situation is not optimistic. It seems that some special means must be used. Otherwise, even if we defeat the tree man, it will probably be too late to take Mira and the others to Grandma Polyusica for treatment. Thinking of this, Mobai narrowed his eyes slightly, gently steadied his body, and then opened his mouth as wide as possible, and frantically inhaled into his body. With the corresponding activation of the Storm Dragon Crystal, the suction force instantly caused a hurricane of considerable size, and the branches and leaves of the surrounding trees swayed in the wind. In the hurricane, a little purple air slowly condensed, and was also sucked into Mobai's body along with the wind. Mirage immediately understood the intention of Mobai's move, and a look of endless panic appeared on his face, and he shouted desperately against the wind. Stop now, are you going to die? Lysina also stared at the scene in front of her in a daze. Brother Mobai, you. In the distance, Azuma, who had just been knocked back dozens of meters by Mobai, also rushed back at this moment, and was stunned on the spot when he saw Mobai's performance. In order to save those two women, does he want to absorb the miasma of the entire forest into his body? As Azuma said. At this time, Mobai was trying to draw the miasma in the forest into his body with all his breath. No way. Since entering the guild, Mobai has remembered Myra's kindness to him. He doesn't want the two sisters to be hurt again. I remember Laxus did this when he faced the Hades Gate. He sucked away all the magic barrier particles and left himself with sequelae. The figure of the blonde young man in a black coat slowly emerged in Mobai's mind. And back to reality. Looking at Azuma, who was still shocked, Mobai grinned and inhaled the last breath of miasma into his body. There was a sharp pain in his stomach. It hurts more than kidney stones. Mobai wiped the sweat from his nose and thought to himself. It's a pity, if there was a magic crystal of poisonous dragon like Cobra. I'm afraid that inhaling so much poison gas at once will cause considerable damage to my magic power. I have to kill the tree man before the poison spreads to my body. Skin of Steel. The power of Dragon Slayer was activated, and the dragon scale steel armor was embedded in the skin of Mobai's body, temporarily slowing down the spread of miasma in the body. Azuma finally changed his previous dull expression, and looked at Mobai with a little more admiration, saying, You are Mobai, the Dragon Slayer wizard who knocked Zenkro off the cliff before. Ever since I heard about your experience, I have always wanted to fight with you. Mobai brewed the violent power of Thunder Dragon in his fists and looked at each other coldly. In the past, Mobai could respect this kind of wizard who loves war and pursues power. But since Azuma has already hurt the two Mileage sisters, Mobai just wanted to burn his dream at this moment. And Azuma was not angry when he saw Mobai was silent and ready to fight. He also activated the powerful magic in his body and said, There is a spring at the deepest end of the haze forest. If you can defeat me, you can soak your body in the spring to remove the miasma in your body. Mobai licked his dry lips and responded coldly, I understand. The figure immediately turned into golden lightning and disappeared from the spot, and rushed towards Azuma again with a swift attack. Thunder Dragon's Collapse Fist. Azuma was prepared and leapt to another big tree beside him, and his body merged with it. Boom! The violent thunderbolt instantly cut the tree in half. And this was naturally just a cover for Azuma, his real body had already hidden in other trees. The deep voice echoed in the forest. "Ha, such a powerful force, you are worthy of being one of the top wizards of fairy tale. It's a pleasure to fight with you." As a dragon slayer wizard, Mobai quickly relied on his keen senses to lock onto the opponent's specific position. At this time, Azuma was half hiding in the giant tree at 1 o'clock, constantly absorbing the power from his own the magic of nature. This is the true power of the Ark of the Lost Magic Tree, rooted in the earth, integrated with nature, and constantly absorbing the power of nature for its own use. Mobai could clearly sense that the magic breath on Azuma was several times stronger than before, and it was even growing stronger. However, if you convert the power of nature into your magic power so unrestrainedly, you will soon be backlashed, right? Mobai's voice floated through the forest. Azuma responded in a deep voice, "It doesn't matter. I must do my best to fight a powerful magician like you in my lifetime. Take the breath back into the body." Mobai has realized that Azuma is accumulating power like this, as if he wants to directly decide the winner in the next attack. Just in time for a quick battle, you can go to Qingyan Spring to take a bath after the fight. Looking around again, in the dense forest, the most useful element here is the wood element. Mobai secretly made up his mind, closed his eyes, and mobilized multiple dragon-killing crystals at the same time. The most frequently used fire, thunder, wind, and the wood attribute that exists most in the forest. As the emerald green shuttle-shaped crystal in the consciousness space lit up, 4 different colored magic beams emerged from the magic circle under him, and Mobai's eyes suddenly opened. Pour all this magic power in the direction of Azuma. Dragon Killing Secret. Dragon K Wanxiong. Chapter 105. The Power of the Wood Dragon, Control of Life. With the activation of the Dragon Slayer secret, the natural magic that had been constantly flowing into Azuma's body, now turned around and gathered on Mobai. Behind Mobai, a projection of a green dragon with wide eyes appeared, and the breath was particularly terrifying. In the deep forest, Azuma's figure finally reappeared, and he had already sensed the majestic offensive that Mobai had accumulated. The next attack, regardless of the outcome, may be my last battle. But I have no regrets if I lose my life in this kind of battle. Azuma's face was fearless, and even infinite fighting spirit surged in his eyes, and he also burst out the magic power he had absorbed for a long time. The earth roars. As his arms reached into the ground, the surrounding ground began to shake suddenly, and dozens of thick wooden vines drilled through the cracks. Surrounding Mobai and the projection of the dragon behind him, like a cage. Under Azuma's control, they rushed up and instantly caused a violent roar. Mobai. The air wave generated by the explosion directly pushed the weak Melage back a few points again, and her beautiful eyes were full of worry. Mobai's figure had been completely engulfed, and he could not see the situation clearly. The next moment, Azuma drained the last wisp of magic power in his body and invested it all in the last blow to suppress Mobai. But the originally intertwined solid wood vines faintly transmitted magic fluctuations, even giving people the illusion that they could be broken at any time. Boom! A majestic atmosphere suddenly rose inside the woodvine prison, and the light rose, directly swallowing all the broken woodvine branches. In the center of the light, Mobai had already accumulated the secret of dragon slaying. As the magic power was finally released, the giant dragon projection rushed forward. But Azuma had already drained all his magic power and was powerless to resist. Under the gaze of many eyes, the 4 dragon magic beams were unstoppable and pierced Azuma's chest directly. Is it over? With a smile on his face, Azuma's body fell down like an old tree. At the same time, the branches that bound Lisana also lost their magic power and withered instantly. A little force can be used to push them away. Mobai stared at the front quietly, and his eyes did not move away immediately. Perhaps because he overused the arc of the big tree to take root in the ground to absorb magic power during his lifetime. New plant sprouts appeared on Azuma's body at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his skin slowly merged with the ground, gradually losing its original appearance. Like the last fallen leaf swept by the autumn wind, Azuma lay quietly in the arms of the earth, without regrets, and his life was able to return to nature. Mobai breathed a sigh of relief, and the steel scales and armor on his body gradually faded. Just turned his head. Malaje and Lisina walked up to him quickly, and without saying anything, they were about to take off his shirt. Mobai subconsciously pulled his hand to stop them. "Hey, if you keep doing this, I'll scream molestation, right?" Malaje looked anxious. "Take off your clothes quickly. You've inhaled so much poison gas, it may have started to spread in your body." "Really?" Mobai was immersed in the battle with Azuma just now, and after Malaje's reminder, he felt the severe pain in his abdomen again. "Take off the shirt." The situation on his body scared Mobai himself. Affected by the miasma, a large area of his body from the chest to the abdomen has turned into a strange purple. The purple area is like a stubborn devil, and it is still constantly extending tiny cracks around, frantically eating away at the still intact skin on his body. Mobai scratched his head in shame. "It seems that I was a little impulsive just now. I didn't pay attention for a moment and actually sucked in so much." Lisana stretched out her arm tremblingly and gently stroked Mobai's poisoned skin. After all, Mobai was summoned by his amulet to rescue them. Unexpectedly, they sisters were safe, but Mobai suffered a lot. Lisana's beautiful eyes showed heartache and guilt, and whispered, "I'm sorry, brother Mobai." Mobai said helplessly, "Don't worry, I'm lucky and I won't die. Besides, didn't the tree man say that as long as the body is immersed in the Jingyan spring, the miasma can be removed immediately?" Marahe seemed to suddenly remember something and quickly took out the commission form for their trip from the backpack. The terrain of the haze forest was drawn on the back, and the location of the Jingyan spring was indicated at the deepest position. As if seeing a ray of light in the darkness, Marajan immediately put Mobai's right arm on his shoulder and whispered, "We are going to Jingyan spring now, hold on for a while longer, don't sleep." Mobai was even more speechless. "No. What are you saying? Why do I feel like I'm about to die?" Except for the pain and weakened magic power, Mobai didn't feel any other abnormalities in his body at this time. But after all, he was a dragon wizard. No matter how lacking magic power he had, he could just pull some tree bark and drink some wine to replenish it. Mobai was about to say that she didn't need to make such a big fuss, but Lisana next to him cooperated and stubbornly raised her left arm. The two sisters supported him on the left and right and walked forward. It was quite comfortable to be taken care of by the sisters. It was effortless to walk. Mobai's eyes turned quietly, and suddenly he had a bad intention. He didn't walk far. Yawn. Mobai's upper and lower eyelids began to fight, and he said weakly, "Mila, I feel a little sleepy, I'll sleep for a while. Call me when you get there." "Ah." Marahe and Lisana panicked. For people who are poisoned, once they fall asleep, wouldn't it be difficult to wake up again? Lisana immediately shook Mobai's arm desperately and shouted anxiously, "Brother Mobai, you must not fall asleep. Come on, talk to me and stay awake." The voice reached her ears. Mobai narrowed his eyes with difficulty and looked at Lisana. But before Lisana could be happy, the next second, Mobai's head dropped down completely. "Of course, this is fake." "Mira." Hearing Mobai's hoarse call, Marahe immediately put his ear close to it. "I'm listening, you say." Mobai was still half dead, and said intermittently, "Mira, I seem to see a bunch of little people passing by, lining up to jump down." "Ah, where are the little people?" Before Milaji could ask clearly, Mobai suddenly coughed violently several times, and then said, "I seem to see my uncle again." "Uncle, aren't you an orphan?" "Uncle said to me, said." "What did he say?" Chapter 106. He said that what you love is your life. Marahe didn't understand what this meant, and thought that he was too poisoned and had started talking nonsense. After Mobai finished speaking, his head drooped again, as if he had fainted, and his breath was weak. Wake up, Mobai. You can't sleep. Marahe was even more panicked, and hurriedly stopped to let Lisana put Mobai flat on the ground. Then he leaned down and kept rubbing Mobai's face, trying to wake him up. Mobai, can you hear me? Get up and look at me. But after all, no one can wake up a person who pretends to sleep. Marahe became more and more anxious, and in a hurry, he pinched Mobai's thighs hard. Ah! Mobai screamed in pain, and his upper body almost bounced up from the ground. The instant pain caused by that blow just now is not much less than the miasma. This beauty looks gentle, but she is really cruel. Now I am sober. Mobai looked at Milaji with resentment, and just wanted to say something. Milaji was worried, and she went forward and hugged Mobai's head into her warm and soft arms. Promise me, don't make me worry again, okay? Having said that, Mobai was too embarrassed to play dead to tease them, so he had to nod obediently. As we went deeper into the haze forest, following the direction indicated on the commission form, at the end of the green sea, we finally saw a gurgling spring. Pure and light magic flowed out from it. For a magician, even if there is no toxin in the body, just soaking in it can calm the mind and relax. Lisana's eyes immediately showed a bit of hope and joy, and she said, Brother Mobai, why don't you go in and try? Okay. Mobai quickly took off his shirt. Compared to before, the color of the poison purple area on his body deepened again, and from a distance, it looked as scary as if he was possessed by a devil. Mobai slowly stepped into the hot spring pool, closed his eyes lightly, and the clear water instantly wrapped around his whole body. He immediately felt a more severe pain in his chest and abdomen than before. But the pain at this time was different from the previous torture. This feeling was like scraping, removing the toxins from the body bit by bit. Pain and happiness. Cool. Until the pain eased, Mobai noticed that Marajan and Lisana on the shore were still looking at him eagerly. Being stared at by two little girls like this, Mobai couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed, and asked casually. Do you want to join us? No, no. The two sisters waved their hands and refused repeatedly as if they had a telepathic connection. It wasn't because they were shy or anything. But seeing that Mobai was too deeply poisoned, they were worried that even the Qingyan spring could not heal him, so they chose to give as much spring water as possible to Mobai. They didn't inhale much poisonous gas, although they seemed a little tired in the battle before. However, after Mobai created a non-toxic environment, the magic power in their bodies began to recover slowly, resisting the miasma bit by bit and removing it from their bodies. Okay. Seeing that the two people's faces had improved and were no longer as pale as before, Mobai no longer refused. Closed his eyes again, feeling the three-way confrontation of the spring water, the miasma and his own magic power. Thoughts gradually jumped into the consciousness space. Dark and dark. Mobai was in the center, with 8 different colored shuttle-shaped dragon-killing crystals suspended around him, each emitting a little bit of magic. Ever since I used the 4 dragon secrets when I faced Sister Lei for the first time, I always felt that there was a strange energy in my body that began to stir. Is there another source of magic in this space? Thinking of this experience. After inhaling so much miasma at once, there seemed to be no obvious damage except for a little stomachache. The more Mobai thought about it, the more wrong it seemed. Did I miss something when I activated the dragon-killing crystal? Or do I have a poison crystal like Cobra in my body? And this idea was quickly ruled out by Mobai himself. If there really was a poisonous dragon-killing crystal, I'm afraid it would be directly converted into my own magic the moment the miasma was inhaled into my body. Naturally, there was no need to go through so much trouble and soak the body in spring water to detoxify. Try to activate the magic first. Scanning his eyes from the Dragon Slayer crystal, Mobai gradually released the power he controlled one by one, seeking the magic resonance in the consciousness space. As the 8 heavy magic was activated from the crystal, the beams gathered, showing their beauty in the air, circling and then rushing forward. Over there. Mobai was overjoyed and ran quickly towards the beam. But before he went far, the originally brilliant magic light wave suddenly seemed to hit something, and disappeared without a trace the moment it came into contact with it. The consciousness space once again escaped into darkness. Mobai's pupils shrank, and he ignited a flame in his palm again, illuminating the road ahead. Through the firelight, he could see the situation in front of him clearly. At the same level as his sight, there was also a shuttle-shaped crystal suspended, and the 8-fold magic beam just now was completely swallowed by it. Mobai stared at the crystal in a daze. Even under the light of the fire, the crystal was still completely black, not a single ray of light could be transmitted. Is this the thing that absorbed all my magic power? In order to verify his conjecture, Mobai started to circulate the magic power in his body again. The 8 crystals in the dark space were mobilized by it, flying from a distance and hovering above the dark crystal. With the re-explosion of the 8-fold magic power, the light beams were transmitted straight from the crystals in different directions, shining on the surface of the dark crystal almost at the same time. Mobai stared at the reaction of the black crystal, but his hands did not lose their strength. Time passed by. But this black crystal did not move at all. Even if the 8-fold dragon-slaying power was infused into it, it was still like a smelly and hard toilet stone, and it did not get any response at all. Mobai scratched his head in astonishment. What on earth is this thing? It is basically certain that some of the miasma was absorbed by it, so it would not kill me. But why did I pour so much magic power into it, but still could not feel a resonance? Just when he was wondering, suddenly, Mirajan's anxious call rang again in his ears. Mobai, can you hear me? His consciousness returned to reality. Mobai slowly opened his eyes, and then he saw Mirajan and Lisana, who were worried, still standing on the shore. What's wrong, Mira? Faced with the question, Mirajan just pointed to the spring water he was soaking in. Mobai then looked down. The originally clear and transparent Qingyan spring had now been completely dyed purple, and it was covered with a whole layer of miasma. What the hell? Chapter 107. What the hell? Mobai immediately jumped out of the spring. Although the purple poison on his body has eased and the color has faded, the area has not decreased. Mobai couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seems that the poison is too deep, even this spring can't save me. Fearing that the 2 sisters would lose control of their emotions again, Mobai hurriedly added. Don't worry, I will definitely not die. After we get out of this forest, we will go directly to Granny Palyuzika, she will definitely have a way. Granny Palyuzika is the president's longtime friend. Although her personality is a bit weird, she has always been dedicated to helping everyone in Fairy Tale with treatment, and everyone in the guild usually respects her. Mirahe nodded gently. Take the coat handed over by Lisana. Mobai was about to put it on, but his arms suddenly stopped in midair, and the corners of his mouth gradually showed an arc. Brother Mobai, what's wrong? There is a familiar smell, it seems to be some of my old friends. Wait here for a while, just in time, I have a chance to introduce them to you. What about your injury? Mobai smiled and replied, it's easier to deal with the miasma. Among these friends, one happens to be a master of poison. As the other party's breath got closer and closer, Mirajan and Lisana also began to sense it. Until a pair of hands pushed aside the leaves of the bushes, the old friend mentioned by Mobai finally appeared. And when Mirajan saw the 5 of them, she was speechless. 6 demon generals. Although Mirajan did not personally participate in the confrontation between the guild coalition and the 6 demon generals, it can be seen that she was knowledgeable and recognized at a glance that the people in front of her were the wanted criminals on the run from the Kingdom of Fury. The 6 demon generals, Cobra, Angel, Hoda, Lisa, and Dark Knight. Except for Brian, who was killed at the beginning, they are all here. The leader of the five, Cobra, couldn't help but frowned, glanced at Mobai, and teased. "Oh, you are so lucky, President. You have to bring two little beauties with you when you come out to do a commission." Marahe and Lisana both widened their eyes and said in disbelief, "President." Mobai heard this and walked straight forward to block the two sides, and then introduced to Marahe and the others. "Ahem, the 6 demon generals have been destroyed. Now, they belong to an independent guild called Witch's Sin, and the president is me. It's a long story. Anyway, I was the one who brought them out of prison. Now they have changed, and they are busy destroying the Dark Guild every day." The shock echoed in the eyes of the two again. Mobai immediately turned around and asked Kebula, "Why are you here?" Kebula said, "I heard that one of the 7 followers of Purgatory in the Demon Heart was practicing alone here, so we wanted to take the opportunity to deal with him. I just didn't expect you to move so quickly. I heard the sound of you killing him as early as the outskirts of the forest." Mobai smiled and punched Kebula on the shoulder. Since the establishment of the Witch's Sin Guild, he has never contacted these 5 people, and occasionally he would worry whether they have really changed. But now it is obvious that the answer has been obtained. Under the leadership of Kebula, this group of people has already embarked on the road to eliminate the Dark Guild. Cobra paused, and suddenly asked again, "By the way, I went to Magnolia secretly some time ago. I have heard about Janana's affairs. How is she recently?" Mobai answered casually, "Janana. Except for being a little fat, everything else is fine. It can be seen that you fed her very diligently before." Cobra was immediately angry. "Damn it. Don't think I dare not hit you just because you are the president." After a simple greeting, Cobra then made a disgusted expression and said reluctantly, "No need to cover up. I saw that you were poisoned by miasma when we just met. Lie down and take off your clothes. What a troublesome guy. If you die, who can I count on to help me restore my innocence?" Mobai rolled his eyes and did it anyway. Although Cobra was unforgiving, his body was still very honest, concentrating on activating the poisonous dragon-killing crystal in his body. "Take this opportunity." Angel quietly slid to Malaje's side, gently nudged her with her elbow, and said with a rotten girl's smirk, "Hey, do you think they will kiss each other in a while?" "Huh." Marahe's pretty face immediately blushed, and she whispered, Is this something we can say?" As Cobra placed his palms on Mobai's chest and abdomen. The magic power was running, and the purple poison on the skin instantly began to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye, flowing along the arm into Cobra's body. The pain was greatly relieved. After only half a minute, the poisoned skin returned to normal. "It's okay," Cobra said expressionlessly. Mobai stood up and twisted his body, and suddenly felt much more relaxed. He couldn't help but give a thumbs up and praised sincerely. "Dr. K, you are a miracle doctor." "Tisk." Cobra curled his lips disdainfully and said, "I just helped you to remove the existing poison gas. As for whether there will be any sequelae, that's not my business." Mobai smiled lightly and said, "Okay, we can find Granny Polyusica to solve the rest. As for you, be careful not to be caught by the council one day. I won't go to rescue you." "You don't need to rescue me." Cobra rolled his eyes at him, and then asked, "By the way, I still don't understand why our guild is called Witch's Sin. Who is the witch?" Mobai scratched his head and couldn't help but think of Sister Arusha. Although Arusha is still in the Devil's Heart, she has longed for freedom in her heart and is waiting for the opportunity to leave. And Witch's Sin is naturally named according to her experience. For now, it's better to wait. Although we have met the Devil's Heart, their 7 Purgatory followers only lost 2 people, Zenkro and Azuma, and we are in the light while they are in the dark. Wait until the day when the Devil's Heart is completely wiped out, and then arrange for Sister Lei to find Cobra and the others. Thinking of this, Mobai kept it a secret like he did on the first night. "You will know later." Cobra turned around cursing. He waved to the remaining 4 people of the Witch's Sin and asked them to leave. Except for Cobra himself, the other 4 people said, "Goodbye, President," to Mobai in a formal way. They still look forward to this seemingly unreliable president to bring them back to freedom one day. Looking at the backs of the few people leaving, Mobai smiled and turned his head to look at Mirajan and Lisana beside him again. Let's go to see Grandma Polyusica too. Chapter 108. Time goes back to several decades ago. At that time, 6 wizards in their prime formed a team, and they were in their prime. Now, things have changed. These people include Makarov, the current president of Fairy Tale, Bob, the current president of Blue Pegasus, Goldman, the current president of Four-Headed Hounds, Yajima, the former member of the council, and Polyusica, who chose to live in seclusion. As for the last one of the 6, it was Rob who sacrificed his life in the Tower of Paradise to protect the young Urza. After the Tower of Paradise was completely destroyed, Mobai returned alone once, as a tribute and gratitude to Grandpa Rob. At this moment, Mobai is going to visit the only female member of Makarov's team, Grandma Polyusica. After flying for a long time with the hands of the 2 sisters, Mobai finally folded the wings of the storm dragon and stopped in front of a cabin in the woods. Mirajan walked up slowly and knocked on the door gently. "Who is it?" The old woman's voice came from inside the house. "It's me, Grandma, Mirajan of Fairy Tale. The kid of Fairy Tale." Crack. The door opened. What came into view was an old lady wearing a red robe decorated with dragon teeth, exactly the same as the one that Mobai had seen Sister Lay pretend to be. Granny Polyusica came straight to the point and asked, "What do you want to see me for?" Marahe answered, "It's like this. We inhaled some miasma in the haze forest. The Qingyan spring has been polluted. We can only come to you." Granny Polyusica's face became more and more ugly. "Makarov is really that old man. He asks you to perform such dangerous tasks every day. Come in, all of you. If the miasma is not cleaned up, it is easy to suffer from the sequelae of magic power weakening." Mobai smiled and bowed deeply to her. "Thank you, Granny." Granny Polyusica waved her hand casually, pushed the wooden door open as far as possible, and stepped aside to make room for the 3 people. As soon as he walked into the room, the strong smell of medicine rushed into his nose. Mobai sat quietly in the living room, waiting for Granny Polyusica in the inner room next to him to check Malaje and Lisana. After a while, the door was opened, and Mobai immediately stood up and asked, "Grandma, how are they?" Fortunately, although they have not undergone any detoxification treatment, they have not inhaled much poison gas. They will be fine after a few days of rest here. Mobai was relieved when he heard this. But Grandma Polyusica glared at him and her tone became sharp. "I heard from the 2 girls that you directly attracted the miasma of the entire forest into your body. Are you really not afraid of death?" Mobai shrugged, smiled helplessly, and did not comment. "There is no way. I was more afraid that they would die in that situation." Grandma Polyusica waved her hand impatiently, and then said, Okay, come with me. Your situation is probably much more serious. Even if you find a poisonous dragon slayer to remove it, it will be useless. The miasma will remain directly in your magic power." Mobai was stunned. He didn't expect this. Originally, after Cobra absorbed the miasma, he felt no discomfort and thought he was almost cured. Unexpectedly, it was quite troublesome. This trip was the right thing to do. Following Polyusica into the inner room, Mirajan and Lisana had already dressed neatly and cast worried eyes. As Mobai took off all his outer clothes, Polyusica's dry palms passed over his skin and carefully examined him. For a long time, Polyusica sighed and said solemnly, "You have ingested too much miasma and it has begun to invade your whole body magic." Ah, Mobai was surprised. "Don't be excited. Since you are a dragon slayer, the last thing you lack is magic, so you realized it later. If you don't get treated as soon as possible, it will definitely be a huge hidden danger." Polyusica explained word by word. "Well, okay, then listen to my mother-in-law. Mobai did not hide his illness or avoid medical treatment. Even though the S-class wizard assessment and the attack of the Devil's Heart are just around the corner, the body is the capital of the revolution after all. Let's take care of our own situation first. Just when Mobai thought the examination was over and was about to get up, Poliusica shook his head gently, signaling him to lie down again. The fingertips with healing magic touched the skin on Mobai's chest and abdomen again, and the fatigue between the muscles was immediately relaxed. Mobai was about to close his eyes and enjoy it. Poliusica's fingers suddenly retracted as if they were electrocuted. Mileage and the other two beside him were also startled. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Grandma Poliusica panted, her pupils full of disbelief, and asked Mobai in surprise. "In addition to the Dragon Slayer crystal, is there something more terrifying hidden in your body?" This. Looking at the worried eyes of the three people, Mobai smiled bitterly and told everything about the dark crystal he saw in his consciousness space. "That's probably the case. Grandma, I think what you are talking about should be the strange crystal that can absorb all magic power. But the strange thing is that although it has the same shape as the other 8 Dragon Slayer crystals in my body, I can't feel the magic resonance on it at all, as if this thing doesn't belong to me." Poliusica sighed after hearing this, and then slowly told the truth. "This is indeed a Dragon Slayer crystal. But it belongs to a very special type. Ordinary Dragon Slayer crystals are generally made from the heart of a dragon, gathering the most refined Dragon Slayer properties. And this last dark crystal in your body crystal, I suspect, it may be made of other parts of the dragon's body, most likely the head." Mobai couldn't help asking, "Grandma, is there any difference between crystals made of the heart and the head?" Poliusica's face became more solemn, and said, "It's too early to draw a conclusion. It was made of the dragon's head. Ordinary dragon-slaying crystals can give wizards the ability to use dragon-slaying magic for a long time. But yours consumes all the magic power in the crystal at one time, greatly improving your magic power in a short period of time, and completely mastering the power of this dragon before it died, and even temporarily turning into a dragon." The voice fell. Mobai finally realized it. "No wonder I couldn't feel its resonance in every previous battle. It turned out to be just a disposable consumable. It's gone after it's used up. But judging from the previous performance in the consciousness space, the dark crystal can silently absorb all the other 8 magic powers. This black dragon must have been a very powerful dragon before it died. Doesn't this mean that if you encounter a tough enemy in the future, you will have an extra life-saving outfit? You can switch forms at any time to fight back." Just when Mobai was feeling complacent, Granny Poliusica poured a basin of cold water on him. "Don't be too happy yet. The power of the dark crystal is too violent. You must not use it now." "Huh, why?" Chapter 109. Poliusica then explained, "The power of this dragon was too great when it was alive. Once the crystal is activated, your body may not be able to withstand this magic power at all. If you explode and die at that time, even the gods can't save you." "Ah, okay." Mobai could only reluctantly agree, seeing that it was getting dark. After Poliusica once again reminded Mobai, he said, "You all stay here today. Later, I will let the mechanical bird send a letter to Makarov and tell him about your situation." Mobai was about to bow and thank him, but Poliusica waved impatiently and walked out of the room. Mobai and Miragelasana looked at each other, their eyes full of helplessness. There was no way, this old lady with a sharp tongue and a soft heart had this character. She said she hated everyone and refused all contacts, but she still cared about each of them. Midnight. Lying in bed, Mirage tossed and turned, still unable to sleep well. Looking at Lysina lying beside her pillow in the moonlight, Mirage sighed and stood up gently. "Sister Mira, where are you going?" As soon as she sat up, Lysina's light voice sounded immediately. Mirage turned her head, covered Lysina with the quilt again, and asked softly, "Are you still asleep?" "It's so late, where do you want to go?" "No. Nothing. I can't sleep, so I'll go out for a walk. A sly flash in Listena's eyes, she sat up and said expectantly. Before going to bed, I saw Brother Mobai went out, and he shouldn't be back yet. Are you going to find him? Ah. Seeing that her purpose was exposed, Mirage suddenly felt a little at a loss. I didn't know whether I should go out or lie down again at this moment. Lisena thought for a while, and suddenly she stretched out her arms to hug Milaji, and whispered in her ear. Amila, in fact, it's okay to let Brother Mobai be my brother-in-law. In this way, we will be a family in the future. Amilaji's face suddenly flushed, feeling embarrassed and annoyed. I never thought that Lisena would say such a bold thing. Stinky girl, what nonsense are you talking about? Flipping a corner of the quilt, Milaji pretended to be angry and ran out of the room. Lisena lay back down, wrapped in the quilt and smiled secretly. Amila is really. She likes it, but she just keeps it in her heart and refuses to say it, alas. Outdoors. Starry sky. On the cliff not far from the cottage, Mobai sat cross-legged on the grass alone, letting the breeze blow by, quietly looking into the distance. Zancro and Azuma are both dead. Now, in addition to President Hades, there are 5 members of the 7 Purgatory followers and a vice president left in the Demon Heart. But their whereabouts are too strange. Sister Lei has not conveyed any news to me for so long. It is probably impossible for them to take the initiative to attack. Thinking of this, Mobai couldn't help but clench his fists again. If the entire combat power of the guild is taken into account, it is more than enough to destroy the Demon Heart. But what he is most worried about is not the opponent's strongest combat power, President Hades. But once the powerful dragon-killing magic is used, it is likely to attract that extremely terrifying guy, Akunologia. Perhaps, I have to think of a way to use some other means to get rid of President Hades in the near future, and I must avoid using dragon-killing magic. But for a while, Mobai really didn't have a pig. Lying on the grass. Thinking fruitlessly, Mobai's mind jumped into the consciousness space again. In addition to the 8 original crystals, there is also a pitch-black crystal, whose edge can be vaguely seen under the surrounding light. Mobai stroked his chin and thought. Dark crystal, black dragon. Speaking of which, Acnologia is also called black dragon. Is there any relationship between these 2 black dragons? Maybe they are brothers. Or, is the one in my body Acnologia? This is too ridiculous. While thinking wildly, Mobai suddenly felt a familiar breath nearby, and his consciousness returned to reality. Not far behind him, a beautiful figure was slowly walking towards him. Mira. Under the bright moonlight, Mirajan's delicate cheeks were more beautiful, like a fairy in the moon. And she noticed Mobai's gaze. Mirajan unconsciously quickened her pace, walked quickly to him, and said shyly. Why don't you go back so late? Mobai smiled and said jokingly, you haven't rested yet. Come out to enjoy the moon. That's not the case. I came here to find you. Mobai was stunned. At this time, in this occasion, she had such an unnatural expression. Wait, she didn't want to confess, did she? Under Mobai's confused gaze, Mirajan thought for a moment, then slowly spoke. Mobai, from the time in Grak village, until this time you saved me and Lisena in the Haze Forest. Without you, we might not have been able to come out alive this time. I really don't know how to thank you. Mobai waved his hand and answered casually. Well, it's nothing, we are all partners in the guild. And you also helped me a lot in accepting commissions in the guild, and often treated me to cakes. Mirahe bit her red lips with her teeth, and a faint response sound came from her throat. Mobai raised his eyebrows. He sat on the grass and asked tentatively, do you have anything else to say? Mirahe hesitated for a long time before he mustered up the courage to say, can you sing a song for me? Mobai couldn't help rolling his eyes. The atmosphere has come to this point, and I thought he was going to confess. Sing, you're making it too difficult for me. Others sing for money, but I sing for my life. But seeing that Marahe also sat next to him, with his arms around his legs, his eyes full of expectation, Mobai sighed silently in his heart, and cast his eyes to the night sky. A ballad that had been buried deep in his mind suddenly emerged gradually. Mobai sang softly. Dark sky, the sky is low, and the bright stars are with you. Insects fly, who are you missing? The stars in the sky are crying, and the roses on the ground are withering. The cold wind blows, as long as you are with me. Marahe listened quietly, with a satisfied smile on his face, but a sense of loss and sadness in his heart. After all, he still didn't have the courage to express his feelings. Marahe comforted himself. Wait a little longer, sooner or later he will know. Chapter 110. The next morning. I had just finished breakfast. A burst of hurried footsteps came from the forest. It was Makarov and Wendy. In yesterday's letter, Polyushka directly scolded Makarov and told all about Mobai's serious condition. The old man was so anxious that he didn't even eat breakfast in the morning, and rushed over with Wendy, who was good at using healing magic. Outside the house. Just met Marajan and Lisana, who were about to leave. Makarov hurriedly called them and asked directly, "Have you met the people of the Devil's Heart? Are you okay? Where is Mobai?" Marajan said softly, "Mobai's poisoning is more serious than ours. Grandma Polyushka insisted on keeping him here to recuperate for a while." Originally, Marajan planned to stay and take care of Mobai. However, according to Polyushka's opinion, it would be better for Mobai to stay here alone to recuperate during this period of time. She and Lisana were ready to leave. Step. Makarov waved at them hurriedly, pulled up Wendy, and kicked the wooden door of Polyushka's house open. Mo. Before Mobai's name was called out, a broom flew over and hit Makarov's head hard. Makarov's eyes went dark, and Polyushka's angry voice rang in his ears. "This is my house. Don't kick the door." Makarov pouted, put the broom aside, and asked, "Where is Mobai? Where did you take him?" Polyushka said unhappily, "He just drank the soup, and he is still running magic in the room to fight against the toxins that are difficult to remove in the body. You should restrain yourself a little." Makarov was still worried. Until he got closer. Through the window, he saw Mobai sitting cross-legged in the inner room, and the magic aura enveloped his body, and then he put his heart back into his stomach. "I say, can you take some responsibility as a parent? If he hadn't been lucky enough to meet a dragon slayer with poison attributes, he would have died before he could even make it here." This. Faced with Polyushka's accusation, Makarov was speechless. To be honest, when Marajan and Lisana accepted the commission, he paid special attention. After confirming that there was almost no danger. Besides, Marajan was an S-class wizard, and the task was only a B-class commission. But they never expected that they would meet someone from the Dark Guild Demon Heart. If Lisana hadn't used the amulet to ask Mobai for help in time, the consequences would be disastrous. While the two were arguing, a familiar voice suddenly came from the room. "You can't blame the president for this. I was also hot-headed at the time, so I sucked in all the miasma." 3 pairs of eyes looked at them in unison. Mobai was standing at the door, looking at them with a smile. On his body, the magical aura was strengthened again, which obviously played a role in resisting the miasma. A turbid tear fell from the corner of Makarov's eye, and his voice trembled. Are you okay?" Mobai spread his hands and said, "Maybe I have a good physical condition. Coupled with the treatment of Grandma Polyushka, I feel that most of the miasma should be forced out." That's good. Polyushka snorted coldly with a straight face. "I don't think you can recover so quickly. It's better to lie down for a few more days." Mobai smiled helplessly, walked forward slowly, and noticed Wendy, who came here with him, and gently put his palm on her little head and stroked. "Wendy is here too, thank you for your concern." Wendy lowered her head a little embarrassedly. "No, it's okay." Didn't Shalulu come with you? No, the president was very anxious at the time, and I didn't have time to call Shalulu before he pulled me over. Ah, okay. Mobai's voice fell. Wendy then turned her eyes to Polyusica. Although it was their first meeting. From the moment she entered the room, the Dragon Slayer's keen sense of smell told her that the old lady in front of her was not an ordinary person. Grandma Polyusica. I smell a particularly intimate smell on you. It seems to be the mother who raised me, the celestial dragon Grandine. Polyusica stared at Wendy for a few seconds, and a rare kind smile appeared on her face. I wonder if you have heard of the story about another world, Edlas. Wendy was startled and nodded repeatedly. That is a parallel world, and almost everyone here can correspond to that world one by one. When Mobai came back from Edlas, he had already told everyone in the guild all the stories about that world. Wendy remembered it very clearly. Polyusica then said, "You smell a similar smell on me because I am the dragon Grandine from the world of Edras. However, I am just an ordinary human." Is that so? Wendy's watery eyes showed a hint of disappointment, but she still held on to the last glimmer of hope and asked. Grandma, do you know any clues about Grandine? I haven't seen her for a long time. Polyusica shook her head gently. Seeing that the clues about the dragon were broken again, Wendy lowered her head sadly and kept silent. But Polyusica immediately changed the subject, took down 2 magic scrolls from the top of the bookshelf beside him, and handed them to Wendy. Many years ago, after I came to this world, the dragon who raised you came to me in person and left me these 2 books on the secrets of Dragon Slayer. At that time, she told me that for some reason, she could no longer teach you these magics in person, so she could only ask me to pass them on. Take them, Wendy. She took the 2 scrolls with both hands. Wendy's eyes were filled with excitement again, and she bowed deeply to Polyusica. Thank you, Grandma. Polyusica waved her hand nonchalantly, glancing at Makarov who was also happy for Wendy. Wendy and Mobai will stay with me for the time being. You can leave now. Makarov was confused and pointed his index finger at himself in disbelief. Ah. I just arrived and you want me to leave. Then why are you in such a hurry to ask me to come here? Polyusica got angry when she saw this old man and snorted coldly. You can't even protect the children of your own guild, so asking you to come here is too late. Get out now. Makarov looked pitiful, and Mobai wanted to plead for him. However, after being glared at by Granny Polyusica, he finally stood aside silently and watched the president being blasted out with a broom. The broom hit Makarov's Mediterranean Sea again and again. Until they were some distance away from the hut, Makarov grabbed it with dissatisfaction and shouted. All right, it's far enough. You kicked me out because you have something to tell me. After decades of tacit understanding, Makarov could really see through her thoughts at a glance. Polyusica looked back, sighed, threw the broom aside, and asked. How did Mobai get so many dragon-killing crystals in his body? Makarov scratched his head. I asked him about it, and he said he was born with it. Born with it? Polyusica looked surprised and continued. I concealed part of the dark crystal in Mobai's body from him. Makarov was startled. Hide. Is there something wrong with that crystal? Chapter 111. Polyusica paused and said slowly, because I come from another world, Edlas, I am naturally sensitive to everything in aslant. But when I examined Mobai, I found some strange fluctuations. I clearly felt that the dragon corresponding to the dark crystal was definitely not in aslant or Edlas, but more like a dragon from another world. Makarov seemed to understand. What do you mean? What do you need me to pay attention to? Polyusica looked solemn. Not only is the origin of the dark crystal unknown, but the magic power contained in it is also extremely terrifying. At least it will not be weaker than the ultimate magic weapon of the council that can destroy the world, and it is even much stronger. After you go back, you must take good care of Mobai and never let him use this magic. Otherwise, I suspect it will attract the attention of some powerful beings that we can't imagine. For many years, Makarov hadn't seen Polyusica so serious for a long time, and nodded immediately. I understand. However, there is one thing that both of them obviously overlooked. 8 dragon-slaying magic crystals were activated in Mobai's body, and his 5 senses were extremely sharp, far exceeding Wendy beside him. Mobai pricked up his ears and eavesdropped on the conversation between the two. Mobai murmured in his heart, "The unimaginable powerful existence, is it talking about the black dragon Acnologia? Or is it from other worlds besides Aslant and Edris?" At the same time, a dark airship sped past a town somewhere. Inside the airship, Hades, the president of Demon Heart, sat in the center with an indifferent look, and a black eye mask covered his right eye. His left eye flashed with a sharp and cold light, like an eagle's eye, as if it could see through everything. Although his hair and beard are all white and he is over 100 years old, the magic aura on his body has not weakened at all, but is particularly strange and terrifying. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. "Come in." Hades agreed and Arusha pushed the door open. Before she could speak, Hades frowned and asked, "Has Azuma not come back from training yet?" Urrutia looked embarrassed and said, "President, Melty and I have already gone to the Haze Forest to look for him. There was a fierce battle there, and Azuma may have." "I know," Hades said lightly. A barely perceptible light flashed in Ultia's beautiful eyes, and she said tentatively, "President, the last time the 3 of us failed to assassinate Fairy Tale's Mobai, our whereabouts were exposed to a certain extent. Besides, Azuma's death this time is likely related to him. There are only 5 of the 7 Purgatory families left now. Does the attack plan for Fairy Tale need to be postponed?" Hades raised his head, his tone mixed with undeniable majesty. "No need, the plan will proceed as usual. As for Mobai, I will send Brunette to assassinate him again in the near future. He will not live to see the day when we officially go to war with Fairy Tale." Ultia's heart tightened immediately. As the vice president of Demon Heart, Brunette's strength is even far superior to her own. "I don't know if that kid can turn danger into safety this time. No, I have to find a chance to inform Fairy Tale of Brunette's assassination." Although he was already planning how to help Mobai in his heart. On the surface, Arusha was still respectful to Hades. "I worry too much, President." Hades waved his hand casually, signaling her to leave. In the huge room, Hades was left alone again, and the cold light in his left eye could no longer be concealed, and the monstrous dark magic power burst out instantly. Since this period of time, many things have been going wrong. Although I don't want to believe it, it is hard to deny that there is a traitor in the Demon Heart. Moreover, this traitor must be playing a very important role. I only revealed the news of Brunette's action to you, Urrutia. If he really kills Mobai, that would be the best. But if he has any accidents, I just need to control you. With Mobai's character, he can only become my puppet at that time, at my mercy. I have to admit that Mobai is indeed a young man with good qualifications. As long as he is afraid of the consequences and obeys my orders, it will be easy to annihilate Fairy Tale. Chapter 112. A few days later. In an open space on the edge of the cliff. Wendy's delicate face like a porcelain doll gradually became firm, her fingers danced gracefully in the air, and the air around her began to change subtly. At first, there was only a faint breeze that quietly blew across the grass, and the grass leaves swayed gently. Gradually, the wind became stronger and stronger, and it swept over with a whistle. The strong wind swirled around Wendy, and gradually formed a large wind barrier, which involved Wendy and Mobai. Dragon Slayer Secret, illuminate the sky. After chanting, the wind barrier suddenly burst out with more powerful Dragon Slayer magic. Gradually compressed to form 2 huge wind blades, and suddenly slashed towards Mobai under the waving of Wendy's arms. At the same time, Mobai also activated the wind dragon crystal in his body, and the magic power accumulated in his chest was about to burst out. Storm Dragon's Roar. Two different types of wind-attributed magic power violently collided and tore each other apart, making an extremely harsh sound, and suddenly a hurricane was set off on the edge of the cliff. Wendy sucked in fresh air in big mouthfuls, constantly increasing the output of magic power, trying to break through the storm spit out by Mobai. But under the suppression of the strong wind, she became more and more powerless, and the center of gravity of her body began to slowly shift. At the moment when the power of the Dragon Slayer's secret was completely dispersed, Mobai gathered his magic power back into his body in time to prevent any harm to Wendy. However, Wendy was still affected and staggered back a few steps, and fell on the grass. Not bad, Wendy, you have made great progress. In just a few days, you can basically master the tricks of the Dragon Slayer's secret. Mobai smiled faintly and walked up to praise Wendy, stretching out his arm to pull her up. Wendy smiled shyly and stuck out her tongue awkwardly, thanks to Mr. Mobai for helping me practice. Although Mobai had told Wendy many times not to be so polite, she still liked to use honorifics when she spoke. It always sounded a little restrained. It's already great, Mobai encouraged. Although the practice of the sky breaking is considered complete, but I haven't made any progress in the other volume of the Dragon Slayer Secret Galaxy. At this point, Wendy's face showed a little sadness again. Galaxy. Mobai thought carefully. The Dragon Slayer Secret Galaxy is quite special. It is not a move used for fighting, but a special secret method, and the method of understanding is also unusual. However, Wendy chose to ask him this question, which was just the right person to ask. Wendy, have you noticed that you have been practicing in battles with me recently to master the sky-piercing technique? Wendy nodded. I found it. Mobai paused and explained in a deep voice. Maybe there is such a possibility that the other Dragon Slayer technique, Galaxy, is not a combat move. Just like auxiliary magic like healing magic. Perhaps, Galaxy is also a secret method used in special occasions. Mobai naturally knows that Galaxy, as an extremely special Dragon Slayer technique, deliberately gives the caster the ability to communicate with dead souls. However, these still need Wendy to comprehend them in practice. Revealing all of them in advance may affect Wendy's practice. Wendy nodded, not quite understanding, but still not getting the point of Mobai, and asked. What should I do next? Let's do this. I'll look for commissions in the guild in a while to see if there are any suitable for you. Then let's try it together, maybe you can understand the Milky Way. Wendy's face immediately showed an excited smile. Thank you, Mr. Mobai. I've told you so many times, just call me by my name, no need to be so polite. Count the days. He has been recuperating here for 10 days. With the nourishment of the magic soup carefully prepared by Granny Palyuzika, the magic power in his body has long been restored. It's time to go back to the guild. The next day, it was just dawn. After saying goodbye to Granny Palyuzika, Mobai took Wendy's little hand and flew back to Magnolia with the storm dragon wings. Return to the Fairy Tale Guild after a long absence. After not seeing each other for a few days, the door has been replaced with a new one. But Mobai can't care about these. Bang! As long as Urza, the discipline committee member, is not around, he will always kick the door open. We are back. He can cast his eyes into the room. Mobai and Wendy then found that the huge guild hall was empty, with only Mirajan and Urza eating breakfast at the counter. The moment he saw Mobai, Mirajan immediately showed a bright smile on his face. Welcome back. Come Tilda. You haven't had breakfast yet. The cake was just baked this morning, and I left a portion for you Tilda. When Mirajan turned and walked into the kitchen, Mobai sat next to Urza. How are you doing recently? Urza smiled sweetly. Very good. I was planning to visit you there, but I heard from the president that you need to rest, so I didn't go. It's just a minor injury, it's okay. While talking, Mira had already walked out, and brought a few plates of freshly baked cream cakes and hot tea in her hands, and handed them to Mobai and Wendy. Thank you Mira Tilda. Mobai was not polite either. When he took a bite of the cake, it was still the familiar pei fang and the familiar taste. The sight swept through the empty hall again, and Mobai asked. By the way, where did everyone in the guild go? Why is it so quiet today? The unnatural look in Mirajan's eyes disappeared in an instant, and she chuckled and said, it seems that there is some activity in the town today. The president asked everyone to participate, and everyone left early in the morning. Activity. Mobai and Wendy also came straight from Magnolia. Generally speaking, places with guild wizards must be particularly noisy. But today's town is obviously the same as usual, and there are no lively activities. Mobai was about to ask another question, but Mirajan had already changed the topic and looked at Urza next to him. Speaking of which, Urza, do you still remember when you wanted to learn cooking from me? Urza nodded without hesitation. Of course I remember. At that time, I promised you that as long as you taught me how to cook, I would promise you something you couldn't refuse. Mobai ate and listened quietly. No wonder Urza's cooking was so delicious last time. It turned out that she got the true teachings from Mira. Miraja showed a cunning look between her eyebrows. Yes, I never mentioned that matter later. But today, I think it's time to use this opportunity. Urza swallowed the last bite of cake and wiped her mouth with a napkin elegantly. No problem Mira, since I promised you, I won't refuse no matter what you say. Miraja smiled and said, it's not a big deal. Can you give Mobai to me? Chapter 113. Can you give Mobai to me? As soon as these words came out, Urza hadn't reacted yet, and Mobai, who was drinking tea next to her, spat out a mouthful of tea and looked at Mirajan in disbelief. How could Mira, who was usually gentle and quiet, say such bold words today? Wendy next to her also blushed with shame, and silently leaned to the corner, pretending not to understand. But Urza's next words surprised the two of them. No problem. Mobai turned his head and looked at Urza with a question mark on his face. No, your house was robbed. How do you accept such an open NTR? Urza smiled faintly, not caring. Didn't we agree before? We are now more than friends but less than lovers. If you want to be with Mira, I certainly won't stop you. That being said. However, based on Mobai's experience of being with Urza for so long, he always felt that Urza was a little strange today, and even felt that her smile was fake. As if she had changed into a different person. There was something wrong with her. And while Mobai was hesitating, Mirajan had already walked out of the front desk, gently put her jade hand on Mobai's, and there was a little shyness in her affectionate eyes. Come with me. Since Urza agreed, you will be mine from now on. Mobai complained weakly. No, why do I feel like I am not a person, but an item that you trade back and forth? Mirajan pouted her lips slightly, revealing a bit of disappointment. So you don't want to? Mobai hurriedly said, it's not that I don't want to, but this feeling is too strange. Like a dream. At this moment, Mobai seriously suspected that he had drunk too much of Kate's magic potion and had lost himself in a dream. Mirajan confessed to Urza in front of her, and Urza actually agreed generously. What happened today? Is this reasonable? But it has come to this. There is no way. Or, just obey her. Mirajan smiled, took Mobai's hand and walked out of the guild, and before leaving, she reminded him. Then let's go on a date now. I'll trouble you to take over my job as a waiter in the guild today Tilda. Okay. Urza agreed immediately. Receive, Satan's soul. As the magic energy on Mirajan surged, the magic circle appeared, and after the light dissipated, it turned into the devil Satan's costume. And the two of them held their hands together with their fingers interlocked. Mirajan's hands had turned into devil claws, pinching Mobai painfully. Mobai was puzzled. Didn't we say we were going on a date? Why did you suddenly become like this? Mirahe said lightly, in the past, you always took care of me and prevented me from overusing receiving magic and consuming mana. Today, let me take you flying. As soon as the voice fell, The dark devil wings behind him fluttered in the wind. Marahe casually put his arm around Mobai's shoulders and hugged him into his arms, flapping his wings and rushing out of the guild gate directly into the sky. Inside the fairy tale guild, only Wendy and Urza were left at this time. After a moment, Wendy couldn't help asking, "Ms. Urza, I still don't quite understand why you agreed just now. Logically speaking, shouldn't you be very angry?" Urza smiled mysteriously, but did not answer directly, but gently clapped her palms 3 times. Huh. When the voice sounded, Wendy was surprised to sense a strong magic coming from underground. Bang! There was a noise from the floor of the hall, and a deep pit broke directly from the center. Wow, I finally got out. It's really stuffy in there, I'll suffocate if I stay any longer. It's Gildarts again. He broke the barrier that hides the magic power underground with one punch. The question is how to fill this pit. Gray, put on your clothes before talking. Under Wendy's stunned eyes, the familiar faces of the former guild were noisily jumping out of the big pit one by one. Including President Makarov, almost all the members were present. Wendy subconsciously looked at Urza next to her. What's going on? It all started with a secret letter that Gray received yesterday. At that time, you and Mobai had not returned yet. As Urza spoke, she called Gray, who had already put on his shirt, to her side. Gray took out an envelope from his trouser pocket and handed it to Wendy, explaining seriously. Yesterday, as soon as I arrived at the guild this morning, Mira said that a letter from me had been sent to the guild. I was still wondering who would write to me until I saw the signature, Urusha. She is the daughter of my master Uru. Urutia said that she is now in the Dark Guild Demon Heart. It was she who disguised herself as Granny Polyusica and tricked Mobai into the Haze Forest to assassinate him. Wendy took the letter and it was exactly as Gray said. Urutia wrote down everything that happened between her and Mobai in the Haze Forest, and her words were sincere and did not sound fake. Gray then analyzed. At the end of the letter, Urusha also mentioned that today the Demon Heart would directly send Vice President Brunet to assassinate Mobai. He is a very scary guy. I think the reason why she didn't send the letter directly to Mobai is that she might be worried that her undercover identity would be exposed. Wendy thoughtfully resealed the letter and returned it to Gray, so that's how it is. At this moment, Makarov also stepped forward and continued to add. Yesterday, Gray immediately came to me to discuss countermeasures after receiving the letter. I was thinking that Mobai has already paid so much for the guild, and he has just recovered from his injuries. Let him and Mira go out and relax today. This time, let us protect Mobai. After Makarov finished speaking, he glanced at Urza with a wry smile. Considering the relationship between Urza and Mobai, I was planning to let her accompany Mobai. But with her personality, even if she goes out to play, her mind will probably still be on the battle here, and it is inevitable that she will reveal clues. So in the end, I decided to let Mira go. Urza waved her hand indifferently. It doesn't matter, after all, the situation is special. As long as Mobai can be protected, I don't mind. Wendy suddenly realized. It turned out that from the moment she and Mobai stepped into the guild gate, they had already fallen into everyone's arrangement. Thinking of this, Wendy's face also showed a boldness. President, let me join this plan. Of course. Makarov smiled heartily, jumped directly onto the table, and his eyes swept through the high-spirited people one by one. Now, as the president, I officially announce this special task today. S-level commission, annihilate the enemy at all costs and protect Mobai's safety. The executors are all members of the Fairy Tale Guild. Chapter 114. Gently raising his hand to calm the enthusiastic crowd, Makarov analyzed in a deep voice. Although I don't know how the assassin Brunet will come. But according to Altir's speculation in the letter, the final destination must be the guild and the Mobai family. In the next period of time, I will deploy the route of action later. Gajiel, Levi, Juvia, Elfman, and the Thunder Gods, go to the east of the city together. There is a small road in the suburbs that leads directly to the Mobai family. Received. Urza, your team goes to Harjan the port, maybe Brunet will land there. Aluza promised solemnly, understood. I will take Natsu and the others there right away. Makarov nodded, then looked at Gildarts. According to Altir's description, you are the closest to Brunet in terms of single combat, Gildarts. You will be responsible for guarding the area near Mobai's house. Okay. Lake. Makarov's eyes swept through the crowd, and he subconsciously wanted to call out another person's name, but suddenly realized that he was no longer in the guild. A bit of disappointment flashed in his eyes. Makarov sighed and continued. As for the others, everyone stay here with me. We have strength in numbers, and we can fight even if the enemy directly attacks the guild. Action. As Makarov gave the order, the crowd that had just calmed down became excited again. Although this was a mission that did not conform to the regulations, it was the first S-level commission for many people in their lives, not to mention that it was commissioned by the President Makarov himself. Everyone had only one goal at this time. Fight the enemy at all costs and protect Mobai's safety. At the same time, in the sky above the outskirts of Magnolia, Mirajan maintained the Satan form, waving the devil's wings and soaring in the sky, also fulfilling his own mission. Take Mobai out of the town and return after everything is settled. Flying for a long time. Mobai couldn't help asking, ahem. Mira, you can take me flying, but can you change the position? What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable? That's not the case. I mean, how can a girl hug a boy like a princess? Although Miraji was very cool after using the receiving magic, she could pick him up without any effort. Besides, it was soft and comfortable to lie in her arms. But no matter how I thought about it, I felt a little awkward. I always felt like a gigolo. Miraji shook her head gently. I think this is good. Relax a little. Mobai was embarrassed. So where do you want to take me? I heard that the nearby town of Axel has recently opened an amusement park. Can I take you to see it? Amusement park. I grew up in a small county town in the 18th tier. Because of family reasons, Mobai rarely went to the amusement park before. It was not until he grew up that he occasionally went to experience some projects alone. This was his first time going with a girl. I didn't expect that there is an amusement park in Fury Kingdom. Let's go there. Thank you, Mira. Seeing Mobai agree, Mirajan also smiled and unconsciously increased the speed of flight. Axel, a town not far from Magnolia, is very lively. In the popular amusement park, people come and go in an endless stream, and their faces are filled with happy smiles. Mirajan stopped at the door, and then put Mobai down, and then returned to her usual gentle and lovely white-haired angel appearance. Reluctantly letting go of the hand held by Mobai, Mirajan smiled. Wait for me here for a while, I'll go buy tickets. 2 couple tickets, thank you. Mobai stared at the scene in front of him, a little dazed for a while. When he was with Urza before, because she lacked a sense of security since childhood, most of the time Mobai was used to taking care of her emotions and taking care of everything for her. Mira is different. As the eldest sister, she has raised her younger siblings at home since they were young. Even after falling in love, she took care of Mobai by default. This kind of girl seems to be very suitable to be married home as a wife. Hey Tilda, why are you still standing there? Until Miraji came back to her side with a smile and took his arm. Mobai finally came to his senses. No, let's go in. The amusement facilities in the magic world are not much different from what Mobai remembered. Carousel, roller coaster, Ferris wheel. It's just that it's not powered by electricity, but by magic. Mobai was still thinking about which one to play first. A little girl with pigtails suddenly jumped in front of him, looking up and smiling at him. Brother, the sister next to you is so beautiful. Mobai smiled silently and looked at Mirajan beside him. Mirajan's face also had a little blush. The little loli is quite good at talking. However, the two of them had already caught a glimpse of the big bundle of flowers hidden behind the little loli, and immediately guessed that she wanted to sell flowers. Mobai was thinking about taking care of her business. But Mirajan had already leaned over and whispered, "Little friend, sell me a bunch of flowers." "Ah, sister, do you want to buy it yourself?" "Yes Tilda, I want to buy it for the big brother next to you Tilda." Hearing Mirajan's words, the little loli's big eyes were full of disbelief. It's been a few days since she sold flowers in the amusement park. She has already figured out the rules. As long as she finds a young couple and talks sweetly, the boys will usually pay. But today, why did she meet two people who are against the trend? The girls are rushing to pay. Mobai was also a little confused when he heard it. "Mira, if you like flowers, I will buy them." No, I said, I bought them for you." Mira shook her head firmly, and then paid the little girl directly, took a large bouquet of flowers from her, and stood up to hand it to Mobai. Seeing that Mobai was still somewhat at a loss, Miraj couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckled softly. "Take it quickly Tilda, isn't it normal for couples to send flowers to each other?" Mobai stuck out his tongue, then stiffly stretched out his hands and solemnly took it, speaking a little mechanically. "Thank you, Mira, I like this bouquet of flowers very much." Miraj smiled and took Mobai's arm again. "Let's go. Today is our first date. No matter where you want to go or what you want to do, I will accompany you Tilda." Chapter 115. On the other side. Harukian Port. The 5 members of the team had been lying in ambush from morning to afternoon, keeping a close eye on the tourists on each passenger ship. But they still did not find any suspicious signs. Natsu rubbed his hungry stomach and muttered, "Why did we come to the port? Are you sure the people from the Dark Guild will take normal transportation?" Arusa was always on guard, her eyes still fixed on the ship that was about to arrive at the port. "I heard from the president that assassinating Mobai is only a small part of the Demon Heart plan. Their real purpose may be to target our entire guild. So before they completely expose their plan, even if they want to assassinate, they should choose some concealed methods. Wait a little longer, don't let your guard down." Natsu still looked reluctant and was about to complain, but Gray next to him punched him in the face. "This is about Mobai's life safety, you should be serious, you fire-breathing waste." Natsu's emotions were instantly ignited, and just as he was about to punch back, he suddenly smelled a strange smell of magic. He couldn't help but stand there. He sniffed carefully again. Urza immediately asked, "Natsu, did you find anything?" Natsu's eyes had left Gray and glanced at the crowd that had just got off the cruise ship not far away, and said slowly, "I felt a very special magical fluctuation among this group of people, which is different from most of the magic we use." Wendy next to him also echoed, "I also smelled it. This magic seems to have an ancient breath." The expressions of several people suddenly became solemn. Through the previous secret letter from Urrutia, they have learned that all members of Demon Heart are good at using lost ancient magic. And Brunette, as the vice president, is not only powerful, but also masters a lost magic that can manipulate gravity at will, which is extremely difficult to deal with. Natsu and Wendy's eyes overlapped and converged, and finally fell on the middle-aged man in a white coat at the end of the team. The middle-aged man has a long braid, the sideburns of his hair have grown to his cheeks, and he exudes a vague evil spirit. Recalling the appearance described in the letter, the physical features corresponded to him one by one. Several people have confirmed at this moment that the person in front of them is the vice president of Demon Heart, Bruno, who came to assassinate Mobai. Lucy asked nervously, "What should we do? After all, this is a port, and it's rush hour. There are too many people coming and going, and it's not convenient to take action." "Don't worry about it, I'm on fire." Natsu immediately swept away the depression just now, and the flame breath full of fighting spirit spread out. He kicked his feet hard and appeared directly from the back of the alley. Just met Bruno who was passing by, and the two looked at each other, only a dozen steps away. "Fairy tale people, Is their whereabouts exposed? Bruno glanced at the emblem on Natsu's right arm and frowned. Natsu grinned, and flames appeared on his fists. Hey, are you the vice president sent by Demon Heart? You must be ready to attack the partners of Fairy Tail. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. The power of Dragon Slayer suddenly erupted, and Natsu raised his fire fist and rushed forward, about to attack Brunot. A sudden pressure suddenly hit, and Natsu's whole body fell directly to the ground without any warning, and cracks were shaken open. Damn! The fight between the two soon caused a commotion in the port. Passers-by shouted that there was a dispute between wizards here, and then they fled in panic. Although Natsu gritted his teeth and used all his strength, he could not lift it up anymore. Bruno stepped directly on Natsu's head and said sarcastically, "Although I don't know how the plan was leaked, with a rubbish like you, I'm sure that Mobai is not much better." At this moment, Gray, who was hiding in the dark, could no longer hold back, and his hands formed a magical force. Ice-shaped Lancer. Dozens of ice spears suddenly flew in the air beside his body. Seeing this, Bruno remained in place. The next moment, wherever his eyes could see, the ice spears fell to the ground and shattered as if they had lost control. Gray's face sank. He looked into Bruno's cold eyes and was about to think of other ways to defeat the enemy. Aluza, Lucy and Wendy no longer hid, and appeared beside him, and 3 magical auras burst out at the same time. Open, Taurus Gate, Talos. Change clothes, Black Feather Armor. Support Magic, Galloping Wind. Standing with his guildmates, Gray's confidence in the battle was rekindled. Let Natsu go, Luxie shouted forward. Brunot smiled grimly, and as his pupils suddenly contracted, the gravity magic was released again. At this time, Gray and the other 4, along with the summoned celestial spirit Taros, fell straight down like Natsu just now, and were suffocated by the gravity. If it was a simple competition of magic power, the combined strength of several people might still be able to fight. But Brunot was a mechanical monster, and relying solely on the special nature of magic could make you have no chance to attack at all. And Natsu was exposed too hastily, and there was no time to think about any countermeasures in detail. In an instant, he fell into a miserable situation of being suppressed one-sidedly. Bruno became even more rampant, stomping hard on Natsu, looking at him with contempt. Boy, I'll give you a chance to live. Tell me, where is the shining super magic fairy of your guild? Also, the whereabouts of the dragon slayer named Mobai. Natsu said firmly, I don't know. Bruno's face flashed with displeasure. In this case, I have to let you suffer a little more. As the majestic magic power gathered in Bruno's hands, Natsu felt more and more suffocated, but still clenched his teeth. Bruno became more angry and raised his fist to smash down. Boom! The sound of thunder suddenly came from the originally clear sky, and Bruno subconsciously froze. Then he saw a golden thunder carrying extremely violent magic power rushing towards him in the distance. Bang! Before Brunot could release the gravity magic again, the golden thunder had already hit him straight. He no longer cared about Natsu under his feet, and his body retreated instantly. A faint cold voice came from the thunder light. Hey! Kneel down and beg for mercy now. I'm not sure if I will kill you directly with the next attack. On the other side. Without the restraint of gravity magic. Natsu and his companions finally supported their bodies and stared at the golden figure who came to support them. The power of thunder and lightning. Mobai. But Mobai has obviously gone out of town with Mira. This breath is just a single thunder, and it doesn't seem to have 8 types of dragon-slaying magic. Wait, could it be? Laxus. Chapter 116. Axel Town. The sun shines freely on the colorful playground, and laughter floats in the air like a beautiful melody. Mobai and Mirajan ride the couple's seat of the roller coaster together. Although both of them have long been accustomed to high-altitude flying, they still suppress their magic power and scream hand in hand. Mobai, if you are scared, you can hold my hand tightly tilde. Just kidding, I'm not. Ah. after being dominated by the roller coaster and the pirate ship continuously. Master Mo, who was only hard in his mouth, finally silently took the ice cream cone handed by Mirajan and sat on the carousel. At the same time, Harjan Port. Laxus turned around and looked at Urza and others. Compared with the previous civil war, his eyes looking at his companions at this moment were obviously a little softer. Natsu screamed excitedly, "It's really you. I just passed by the port and came to see when I heard the magicians. I didn't expect it to be you. And, Natsu, I haven't seen you for so long, your strength doesn't seem to have improved at all." Natsu was furious and immediately retorted, "I was just not prepared just now. This time you stand aside and don't move. Watch how I beat that guy away. Don't underestimate the enemy, his gravity magic is very strong," Lucy reminded. Not far away. Bruno's eyes became more gloomy, "It's ridiculous. The ants actually started to resist. Don't cry and beg me when I step on you again." Gravity suppression. As Bruno's pupils shrank, the surrounding space suffered a change in the gravity field again. Although several people had prepared in advance, they were still suppressed and unable to move. Lucy, who had weaker magic power, had already spasmed. Laxus's face showed a trace of solemnity, and he quickly shouted behind him, "I will find a chance to control him, you follow me." Lightning suit. After the voice fell, Laxus turned into golden thunder again and rushed forward at a rapid speed. His figure continued to enlarge in Bruno's sight, gradually adapting to the pressure of gravity, gritted his teeth and swung a heavy punch with the power of thunder. Thunder Fist. Bruno's sneer, raised his arm and gently took it. Soft attack, didn't you eat? The majestic magic power immediately devoured Laxus's power, and without the protection of magic, Laxus's body suddenly fell down powerlessly. Ridiculous. Brunot was about to insult him again, but was suddenly shocked to find that, although Laxus fell to the ground, there was no regret on his face, and he even smiled, as if he was laughing at himself. You've been fooled. Just a thought body. When? Boom. The figure of Laxus' thought body suddenly flashed and exploded. While Brunot's vision was blurred again, Laxus himself finally appeared behind him, and the power of Dragon Slayer burst out. Thunder Dragon's Collapse Fist. Brunot, who suddenly realized, immediately circulated magic power in front of him. A purple super gravity ball was gradually rubbed, and Brunot laughed wildly. Is this the level of fairy tale? Prepare to face despair, all your magic power will be swallowed up in this collapsing black hole. Hee hee. Laxus is a master of thunder. The explosive power in a short period of time is amazing, and it can even face opponents with higher magic power head-on. But once it gets into a tug of war, it will become increasingly powerless. At this time, the Thunder Dragon Fist has obviously invested all his remaining magic power, but it still failed to shake Bruno's super gravity ball. Bruno's magic is about to take shape. Just when he thought he had a sure win, 3 fast figures rushed out from his side. Dragon Slayer Secret. Red Lotus Blade. Dragon Slayer Secret. Illuminate the sky. Sky Wheel. Sword of Chaos. Thanks to Laxus's firepower dispersion, Wendy used all her support magic on herself and Natsu Urza. Finally getting rid of the gravity field, the 3 of them shot out and used their own killer moves. Magic converges. Brunot was still trying to use the black hole to suppress their magic, but he was shocked to find that the originally exquisite purple super gravity ball had cracks. Impossible. I am the vice president of Demon Heart. You are just a bunch of useless wizards from a useless guild. I will not lose. Laxus finally showed a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth, and said proudly, "Hey. When your mouth cannon output is stronger than your actual strength, it's not too late to say such things. Besides, you are not qualified to judge the Fairy Tale Guild. Go to hell." The 5 powerful magic collides, and Lucy and others who are outside the battlefield also feel extraordinary pressure. Waves are surging at the Harjan port, ships are flipping, and the surrounding ground has been shaken to pieces. When the supergravity ball finally broke, there was no power to stop the attack of Natsu and others, and 4 powerful magic powers hit Brunette head-on. Boom! Brunette's body was repelled at high speed as if it was out of control. He hit and passed through several houses in succession, and the walls were broken. He just stopped and had already lost consciousness. The smoke and dust dissipated. Looking at his embarrassed appearance, several people finally breathed a sigh of relief. Laxus's eyes swept across the messy scene and joked. "You guys are still the same. No matter what kind of battle, you can always destroy the town beyond recognition." Natsu immediately said that he would not take the blame. "Hey. You also destroyed a lot just now, right?" Laxus did not buy it at all, turned around and walked away as if nothing had happened. "Then it's not my business. Anyway, you have a guild, and the old man will compensate you according to the price." There is indeed nothing wrong with what he said. Looking at the back of the black coat, Urza suddenly remembered something and shouted. "Laxus, don't you want to go back to the guild with us?" Laxus didn't even turn his head, just waved his hand. "No. I'm annoyed when I see that old man, and you'd better not tell him that I've been here." And then, no matter how much the few people tried to keep him, Laxus never responded. Gray couldn't help but said depressedly, "What's going on? He came to Hargenport to return to Magnolia, right? Now he's not going anymore. I really don't understand." "That's right. Although he was kicked out by the president, everyone still treats him as a companion, not to mention that the Thunder Gods are still in the guild." Alas, maybe he just wanted to take a look at the guild and the president from a distance and leave. The afterglow of the setting sun fell. The back of Laxus' left was stretched very long. Natsu suddenly said, "I suddenly have a hunch that Laxus will definitely return to the guild one day." Chapter 117. Night falls. The lights are on. Mobai and Mirajan have already taken the Ferris wheel in the amusement park, spinning to the highest point, taking in the night view of the entire Axel town. It's so beautiful. Pulling his eyes back to his side, Mobai suddenly found that Mirajan, who was leaning on his shoulder, seemed to be in a bad mood. Her face seemed a little embarrassed. "Mira, what's wrong with you?" "Yes, I'm sorry, Mobai, I lied to you." "Huh." Mobai was still in the dark and didn't know why. Mirajan bit her red lips with her pearly teeth, and then hesitantly explained the truth. "In fact, before you came back yesterday, we received a secret letter saying that Brunette, the vice president of the Demon Heart, was going to kill you. The sender was called Urutia." Mobai was startled. Sure enough, Sister Lei's prediction was correct. If President Hades fails once, he will definitely come to kill him a second time. Fortunately, Sister Lei delivered the message. "Then what? So you brought me out to avoid assassination?" "Not exactly. After considering this matter, the president decided to temporarily send you away, and then they set up an ambush in Magnolia to stop Brunoth." Mobai was shocked and couldn't sit still immediately. "No, how could you hide such a big thing from me?" Mirahe looked embarrassed. "Don't worry. The president said that you have paid too much for the guild, and today it's time for everyone to protect you once." Alas. Mobai's eyes were full of helplessness. Brunoth, as the second person in Demon Heart besides President Hades, is extremely powerful. Apart from him, the only two people in Fairy Tail who can face him head-on are probably Gildarts and Makarov. It is conceivable how risky their plan is this time. Mirajan whispered, "If Brunoth really came at the time mentioned in the letter, the battle should be over now." "Whether it's over or not, Mira, let's go back now." Storm Dragon Wings. Mobai's eyes flashed with some unquestionable decisiveness, and he kicked the iron door of the Ferris wheel open with one foot. Dangerous action. Minors should not imitate. Adults should not imitate. With wings spread, Mobai stretched out his arms and picked up Mirajan, jumped out of the cabin in midair, and headed for the night sky. There seemed to be shouting from the staff under his feet. But don't worry about these details. At this moment, Mobai just wanted to return to Magnolia as soon as possible to see if everyone could withstand Brunoth's attack. And seeing Mobai's serious look, Mirajan also quietly lowered his head in self-blame, not daring to disturb again. My mission is completed. I hope everyone will be fine. Harjan Port. At this time, the crowd was already full of people. And in the center of the crowd, the smile of the inspector of the council froze, and his fingers trembled as he wrote something on the book. Finally, he couldn't help but look up and ask again. You mean, all the damage to the ships, the collapse of the ground and the demolition of the houses were done by Brunet lying on the ground alone, right? Natsu immediately gave an affirmative answer. Of course. They are a group of people in the Dark Guild. They can do anything. Gray followed and said beside him, that's right. If we hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid the consequences would be even more serious. The two sang in unison, and the cooperation was quite tacit at this time, without the usual tension when they quarreled. Lucy and the others next to them could only smile and didn't expose them. The inspector turned his head when he heard this, so that his men wouldn't see his face twitching. Is it my first day at work in the council? Who doesn't know that you fairy tale have to destroy half of the town every time you do a small commission? Now that so many people have gathered, the entire port is about to be blown up, and you tell me it's all the work of the Dark Guild. But look at Bruno's miserable state. He will be lucky to be alive and breathing when he is brought to the council. And when they fought, due to the destructive power, there was no witness nearby. Well, let's just assume that these fairies are telling the truth this time. The inspector saluted Urza and the others with great reluctance, and said, we are all clear about the situation. Thank you wizards for your contribution to maintaining peace in the town. You're welcome. These are what we should do. Officials of the Council of Ministers dragged the dying Bruno away. Makarov and the rest of the group followed. Seeing the council leaving, Makarov quickly stepped forward and couldn't help but asked in surprise, Bruno has been defeated by you. Aluza nodded gently. I have to say, he is really a very strong opponent. If Laxus hadn't arrived in time to help us, I'm afraid it would be really difficult to win. Laxus. Makarov's pupils instantly dilated and became excited. Although he personally gave the order to expel Laxus from the guild. However, during this period of loss of contact, this naughty grandson often came to his dreams, as if he had never left. When the wizards behind Makarov heard this name, their emotions were also mobilized, and they surrounded him to ask. Especially the three people from the Thunder God clan. Laxus is back. Where is he now? Did he say anything? I'm sorry everyone, Laxus is gone, we couldn't keep him. Urza said regretfully. Makarov's eyes flashed with disappointment, but then quickly disappeared. He waved his hand and said generously. Let him go, I don't want to see him either. Humph. Fried sighed lightly. Although he felt regretful, he could only slowly let it go. Laxus. I hope it won't be too long before we meet again. This commission is coming to an end. Makarov was about to take everyone back to the Fairy Tale Guild. Under the night sky, a figure quickly passed by. Then he stopped in the middle of the crowd. Mobai and Mira. Under the gaze of everyone, Mobai gently put Mira down from his arms, put away the storm dragon wings, and smiled bitterly. It's really hard for everyone today. Such an important thing, everyone in the guild is hiding it from me. Chapter 118. Ah, you know everything. I know everything. If Mira hadn't told me, I would still be in the dark. After Mobai finished speaking, Mirajan looked at everyone apologetically and was about to say something, but was interrupted by Makarov without any courtesy. You little bastard. You're still acting cute after getting the advantage, right? You already have Urza, and today you let Mira go out to accompany you for a day. We also stopped the person who wanted to kill you for you. What else are you not satisfied with? Perhaps it was because of the disappointment of Laxus's departure just now. Makarov was talking with saliva flying, venting all his emotions on Mobai. Mobai could only helplessly say, ahem. Then, thank you, President, thank you, Mira, and thank you everyone. After all, this kind of treatment is indeed the top crown enjoyment in the guild. Mobai. Mira suddenly called softly beside him. Mobai turned his head. What's wrong? According to the president's plan, my mission today was just to take you out of town. But what I said to you was all sincere. Mira's face flushed, and her voice became lower and lower. If you are willing, I also want to take our relationship to the next level. Before Mobai responded, the group of people following Makarov immediately went to live in Bungbu. Mira, so what did you say to him? What do you mean by getting closer? Tell me, Mira, that's not what you meant, right? Every time I accept a commission, you smile at me. Don't you always have me in your heart? Quote. You're a bit outrageous. I'll pee to wake you up. Alas, when Mira brought the child back, I felt that something was wrong between them. I didn't expect, the last goddess of the apartment was still taken away. Why don't we throw Mobai into the sea? Just say it was Brunette who did it. Good idea. Mobai looked at the guild members who were walking towards him with ill intentions. For a moment, he really didn't know what to say, and suddenly he felt someone patting his shoulder gently. Urza. Obviously, everything Mirajan said just now had been heard by Urza. Urza smiled helplessly. Today, you can do whatever you want. Huh, you mean? You stayed at Granny Polyusika's for a long time, and I missed you a lot. How about this? My armor hasn't been updated for a long time. Tomorrow, accompany me to buy new armor. Mobai immediately agreed. Okay. No problem. Mirage's eyes also showed joy, and her white jade hand quietly pulled Mobai together again, biting Mobai's ear and said. Tonight, how about going to my house? My cat can do backflips. Mobai was embarrassed. The cat you are talking about, it can't be Lysina who received the soul of an animal. Mirage smiled mysteriously. Purple light flashed on his body, and he turned into the devil Satan again, holding Mobai's arm and flying directly into the night sky. The painful wails of the men in the guild came from under his feet. First it was the fairy queen Urza, and then the poster girl Mirage. Two of the most beautiful girls in the guild were snatched away by that jerk Mobai. It seems a bit inaccurate. According to the situation just now, it seems that the poster girl snatched Mobai away. You must be happy. Unlike most girls in the guild, Mirajan does not live in a girls' dormitory, but in a two-story attic in the suburbs. During this period of time, with the joining of Mina and the return of Lysina, the small building has become much more lively than before, and it is no longer just her and her brother Elfman. Mirajan gently pushed the door open and said with a smile, Come in, my room is upstairs Tilda. Oh, okay. The room was not lit, so Mirajan took Mobai's arm and walked slowly forward. Before turning on the light and going upstairs, she took out 2 exquisite cream cakes from the refrigerator. Mirajan suddenly said, By the way, I told Lysina and Elfman yesterday that they won't be back tonight. Please ask them to take Mina with you. So it's just the 2 of us tonight. Mobai guessed secretly in his heart. When he arrived at Harjan Port, Mirajan had been leaning on him and had almost no chance to talk to other members of the guild. So there was only one left, possibility. Yesterday, Mira had already decided to bring herself back tonight, and then notified Lysina and Elfman. This girl has considered a lot, far-sightedly, and meticulously. Walking down the stairs, Mirage gently opened the bedroom door, with a shy smile on her face, and turned to look at Mobai behind her. Come in. Inside the room, there was a faint fragrance of flowers, and the moonlight cast a soft light through the pink curtains. Mobai was half pushed by Mirage's hand. Before he had time to see what the furnishings in the room were like, he was gently pushed to the edge of the bed and sat down. Mira. Mirage's face flushed. She sat directly on Mobai's thighs and stretched out her arms to hug his neck. Actually, I wanted to tell you this the night I was recuperating at Grandma Polyusica's house. In my heart, you have taken up the same weight as Lysina Elfman. I can't leave you anymore. Mobi's heart was beating wildly. The corny words stuck in his mouth but he couldn't say them. In the end, he could only utter a few words. Don't worry, I'll always be by your side. Mirage's beautiful eyes sparkled with sparkling light, and finally she smiled. Her right index finger lightly touched the cake on the table, stained with a little white cream, and directly smeared it on her red lips, whispering shyly. Remember you said before that you liked to eat the cream cake I made. Do you want to try it again now? Looking at the expectant eyes of the beauty in front of him, Mobi was just about to make a move. Mirage's eyes suddenly flashed with cunning, and he kissed her on the cheek first. Ah! Looking at Mobi's surprised and frustrated look, Milaji's smile became even brighter. The beauty of the world seemed to be frozen here. Ellipsis. Chapter 119. The time for the test is getting closer. There are only 2 days left to prepare. In order to cope with this test, some wizards who have the hope of being shortlisted have begun to accept commissions or improve their magic power a month ago. Just to pass the test and become an admired S-class wizard. Except Mobi. Since the end of the brunette incident, Sister Lei has not sent a message for a long time. Perhaps the demon heart suffered too much loss after several failures, and it is expected that there will be no more thoughts about fairy tale in the near future. Natsu and Gray also began to accept commissions on their own, rushing to roll up their sleeves before the test, and the team rarely worked together. Mobi is getting more and more idle. Today I accompany Urza, tomorrow I accompany Mirajan, and occasionally go fishing with Gildarts, and then bully Natsu who is challenging me. The days are getting more and more comfortable. Okay, little brats, it's time to stop what you're doing. In the guild hall, Makarov jumped onto the counter and shouted. Everyone's eyes were immediately focused on this. Makarov cleared his throat and said in a loud voice, everyone has been working very actively during this period of time, and I also know what your purpose is. Next, it's time to announce the list of S-class wizards for this assessment. Okay. The crowd was noisy. Makarov raised his hand slightly to calm down. Turning his head and signaling to the bottom, the 3 S-class wizards in the guild, Urza, Mirajan and Gildarts, walked to his side. The location of this assessment is finally determined to be the Holy Land of our guild, Tenro Island. Over the past year, I have seen the progress of each of you present, and finally a total of 10 people have been determined to participate in this assessment. Speaking of this, the heartbeats of Natsu and others in the audience could not help but speed up. Natsu Dragneel. Gray Fullpasta. As soon as the words fell, the 2 enemies who usually fought every day looked at each other, and the fighting spirit ignited in their eyes. They have been waiting for this moment for a long time. Makarov continued to announce, Juvia rocks. Juvia was stunned when she heard it. Ah. Juvia can also. Elfman Strauss. A man should become S-class. Kana Alperona. When Kana's name was called, Gildarts looked at the audience with a loving face and silently gave her a thumbs up. Kana smiled slightly. Dad, don't let me off the hook then. Next, Wendy Mabel. Ah. Wendy's face was filled with surprise, and then she was seriously unconfident about herself. How can I have the strength of an S-class wizard? Shalulu beside her sighed and said helplessly, you should be more confident in yourself. But, Wendy still doubted herself. Didn't Mobi teach you how to use the galaxy a few days ago? Now you have mastered 2 Dragon Slayer secrets, which is already very strong. Okay. Wendy's eyes showed some determination. Makarov continued to announce. The 7th, Fred Justin. The 8th, Levi Makugaden. The 9th, Mester Glade. As for the last one, I'm sure everyone can guess it. Everyone nodded silently, and their eyes were all on a newcomer who had joined the guild for half a year. Yes, it's the Harpy. Huh. Seeing the question marks on the faces of the people in the audience, Makarov immediately changed the subject. Hee, just kidding, the 10th S-class wizard candidate, Mobai. Mobai couldn't help rolling his eyes, full of resentment. President, do you think you are very humorous? Makarov glanced at Mobai quickly. He pretended not to hear and continued to instruct. Due to the large number of participants this year we will partially continue the assessment mechanism of the last time, and each candidate will still fight on his own. There are still 2 days left. I hope everyone can prepare well. 2 days later in the afternoon, we will board the ship to Tenro Island on time at Harjan port. Natsu jumped on the table excitedly and cheered, "Great, I'm on fire." Mobai whispered beside him, "Natsu, you seem to have forgotten something." "Huh, what's that?" "We have to take transportation to go to Tenro Island." The smile on Natsu's face froze instantly. The whole person was stunned, like an eggplant hit by frost, and his face changed drastically. After a long time, he begged in a trembling voice, "Well, can I apply to take the test in Magnolia?" Makarov rolled his eyes at him. "What do you think?" Natsu immediately expressed his dissatisfaction again, turned his head and looked at Mobai and asked, "No, why are we both dragon slayers, but you and Wendy don't get dizzy with transportation?" Mobai spread his hands. "Maybe, our dragon power has not awakened yet." This. Natsu seemed to understand. "Speaking of which, old man, why don't we go there in the morning, but have to wait until the afternoon?" "Nonsense. I don't know which group of blind souls almost destroyed the Harjan port last time. It's good that they are willing to lend us a boat." Midnight. Mobai was lying on the big bed in the villa, tilting his head to look out the window, just able to glimpse a corner of the dark night sky. "The day after tomorrow is the day of the test. I hope the Devil's Heart will really give up this attack due to the heavy losses. I also plan to get the title of S-class wizard." Consciousness gradually blurred. Mobai's mind came to the dark space where the Dragon Slayer crystal was stored. The space was the same as usual. In the center of the 8 colorful crystals, a black crystal was suspended, giving people a sense of mystery that was out of reach. During this period of time, Mobai has also studied this thing. No matter how much magic power he used to activate it, this crystal always remained motionless, absorbing all the magic power, unfathomable. Mobai couldn't help but think, absorb everything. I remember that the black dragon Acnologia also has a similar ability. It even swallowed up the space-time rift. Grandma Polyusica seemed to have said. The magic power of this crystal is at least not weaker than the ultimate weapon of the Magic Council, it will only be stronger. Maybe it can really be compared with the power of the black dragon. While thinking, Mobai suddenly felt a chill, and his consciousness returned to reality. He instantly noticed the magic power outside the house. It seemed to be hostile. Mobai remained calm, and his figure instantly turned into thunder and rushed downstairs. The other party's breath disappeared strangely, as if he had never been there. Only a letter was left at the door. Mobai couldn't help but frown, leaned over to pick up the envelope and opened it. Let me see, whose postman is so dedicated that he delivers letters in the middle of the night? Chapter 120. In a house somewhere in the town. Under the soft light, the bathroom was filled with white mist. K-Mo chicken, so comfortable. Lucy slowly sat in the large bathtub, her face began to flush, and she soaked her whole body in the hot water. She lay back and relaxed, and the fatigue brought by a day's work was gradually washed away. It's better to go home and rest, Lucy murmured. Just as she was about to close her eyes, she sat up directly as if it was a subconscious reaction, and looked around vigilantly. Whenever I took a bath in the past, there would always be a few too armed people in the house at an inappropriate time, and they would treat this place as their own home. Not only did they eat and drink a lot, but sometimes they would directly break into the bathroom. Sometimes it was Natsu alone, and sometimes even Gray and Urza would come with him. Thinking of this, Lucy felt a tingling scalp and a bitter face. Why is it that every time I feel that I can relax alone for a while, I will be disturbed? Lucy had been trained to develop a habit. Whenever she relaxed and felt safe, her brain would send a signal to remind her not to let down her guard. Natsu, happy? Lucy called tentatively. No one answered. It seems that they have been preparing for the S-level assessment recently. They shouldn't come again, right? I can take a good bath and have a good sleep, Tilda. Lucy couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, with a relieved smile on her face. She was about to soak her body back in the bathtub. Boom! As the loud noise came into her ears, Lucy looked in the direction of the bathroom door in horror. But she only saw a wooden door flying towards her. If she hadn't turned sideways due to the stress of her body, this door would probably have directly split her head. What's going on? Lucy turned her head stiffly. Only then did she realize that it was not just the door. From the door to the entire living room, everything was blown away by the loud noise just now. Looking forward, her sight can be directly cast onto the street without any obstruction. In other words, if a passerby passes by and glances at the side, he can directly see the whole picture of her bathing clearly. What sin have I committed? Lucy wanted to cry but had no tears. Just when she wanted to find a place to hide first, she felt a strong magic power descending on her. It was full of oppression and stopped directly in front of her. Bye. After seeing the appearance of the person coming, Lucy immediately realized that she was still being honest with him, and hurriedly tried to find a piece of clothing to cover it. But Bai's body was directly in front of her. Lucy, do you still have the key of the Zodiac with you? I need Loki's help to summon him out. Ah. Lucy looked confused. For a star wizard, the star key is naturally the most important thing. She always carries it with her. Even when taking a bath, she will always keep it within reach. But Bai suddenly visited in such a terrorist-like manner, and asked for the key from her right away. Lucy couldn't help but be suspicious for a moment. Why, are you looking for Loki? Bai was still a little excited. Go to the celestial realm. I'll tell you in detail when we get there. Now it's better to hurry. Okay. Lucy hesitated for a moment. She curled up in the bathtub, casually took out the stored celestial key from the corner, and picked out one of the golden keys. She waved it in the air. Open, the door of Leo, Loki. As the door connecting Aslant and the celestial realm was opened, Loki, the guardian spirit of Leo, walked out gracefully from it. Loki stepped on the ground, pushed his glasses lightly, turned his head and looked at Lucy softly. Hey, Lucy, you're still calling me so late. Why are you giving me benefits again? Lucy's ears turned red with shame, and she shrank back. She pointed at Bai next to her with a wronged look. When they were executing commissions together before, Lucy had summoned Loki to join the battle many times. Loki was no stranger to Bai. Oh, Bai, are you looking for me? Bai stared at Loki for 3 full seconds without saying anything. After 3 seconds, he reached out and grabbed Loki's collar roughly, and started to pull his clothes off. Loki panicked. Hey, I'm a decent person. No, a decent star spirit. I sell my art but not my body. And Lucy is here too, why would she have any thoughts about me? I don't have any thoughts about you. Give me your clothes and take me to the star spirit world. Star spirit world. There are indeed relevant rules. As long as humans can wear clothes from the star spirit world, they can go to the star spirit world under certain conditions. While Loki was confused, Bai had completely taken off his coat and put it on himself. No, why are you going to the star spirit world? Loki couldn't help asking. Bai looked back vigilantly and lowered his voice. I don't know if I'm being monitored now. Anyway, take me there first. There's something urgent. Loki looked at Bai's slightly nervous expression, and it didn't seem like he was playing a prank. Although the star spirit world also has relevant regulations, humans cannot be brought in and out at will. But after all, Mobai said that there was something very urgent. It shouldn't be a big deal to make an exception for a partner occasionally. Loki sighed, and a little firmness flashed in his eyes. Let's go, Tilda. His hands took Mobai and Lucy's arms and pulled them into the Star Spirit Gate together. Lucy screamed immediately. Hey, why are you pulling me? I'm not wearing any clothes yet. The vast and boundless Star Spirit space. It is so vast and boundless, and the stars are within reach. If it were placed on the blue star, it would definitely be a unique tourist attraction. However, Mobai and his companions were not in the mood to enjoy the scenery at this time. After landing safely in the Star Spirit realm, Loki got some clothes from somewhere to cover Lucy temporarily, so that she would not be given benefits everywhere in the Star Spirit realm. Okay, now you can tell me why you must come to the Star Spirit realm, Loki said. Mobai nodded slowly. He took out a letter with a blood-red cover from his trouser pocket, which was the one he had just received at his doorstep. What is this? Mobai said expressionlessly. It was sent by President Hades of the Demon Heart. He controlled the life of a friend of mine and asked me to do something for him, otherwise he would kill him.